All right. Hey, y'all. What is good in the proverbial hood? What's good, my G's? My villains and my G's. So today, my nose is itchy. Today, I want to talk to you about the impossible possibility of SheGo. Why am I going to do that, might you ask? Well, because I can. I'm just kidding. Um, yes. Yes, exactly. No, sorry. Like, yes. Why am I going to talk to you about that today? Because a lot of people, sorry, I have I myself deal with incompetence from time to time. Oh shucks. Okay. Okay. Um, because a lot of people don't understand how villains are created, especially amongst women. Today I'm going to tell you how a lot of people think that I am a villain. A lot of people, I do a lot of things, a lot of extravagant and wonderful things. Um, Not because I'm high on myself that I'm saying this. I literally do exceptional things that many do not do, and I operate on a field that many cannot. Considering my circumstances of a shoestring budget, the level of attack that my father and I've had. Sorry, all my exceptionality, and I'm always burping. I don't know. No, but um, shoestring budget, constant attack, and we keep going regardless of the circumstances. And I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do drugs. Um, which in my situation, in and of itself, those three things alone, like mind blowing. If you understand survivors of trafficking, you'll understand that not having vices is an insane feat. The work that we do to help other people, the different types of work that we do, and the different levels of work within that work that we do across the board. My father's a polymath. That's just what it is, straight up and down. That's the only reason why I can do this. But people, I will do all these things to try and help. Um, and whatever. That's like we would be doing that regardless. It doesn't matter. But if I do one thing that someone doesn't like, one small thing that someone doesn't like, I say something the wrong way. Now I'm the villain. And I was like, okay, well, if you want a villain, well, perhaps you should have one. Perhaps I should show you what a genuine villain is. Or a lot of you don't realize that in failing to look at the bigger picture and failing to look at someone's progress, and women cannot do this because men do not say these things. It's predominantly women that go and do these things and come at things these ways because they get frustrated, they want control, and they want you to do exactly what they want you to do in the way that they want you to do it in that moment. And they take away from your progress across the board on the bigger scheme of things for you to do the one small things in control, in strong arming you. And in that force, through the incompetence and the force that comes through the incompetence of fixing, they actually go now and make that person turn the other direction. I'm an exceptionally stubborn person. You could tell me to eat an apple, and if you try to force me to eat the apple, I would be like, what's wrong with this apple? Who do you work for? Who sent you? Is this apple poisoned? Why do you want me to eat this apple? I'm not eating that. I could be starving. I could be thirsty. I could be dehydrated. If you try to force me to do something, I will sooner choose death than take the force. You would have to literally put me in a situation where my choice is removed. Like an environment in a circumstance where my choice is literally removed from myself. And then in that case, I've not made my own decision. And it's very evident. A lot of people are creating villains. And especially in the women, especially the ones that are intelligent. And I'm going to tell you, and the reason why I named this podcast or this show today The Impossible Possibility of SheGo is because a lot of people think that Kim Possible is actually the hero of this show and that SheGo is the villain, and that the structure of Kim Possible's family, she has a perfect family and everything else, and SheGo, is this villainous, awful girl. It's not the case. Not the case at all. Kim Possible comes from a family, I think one of her parents are a doctor. I forget what the other one does. But the women run the house. She has 2 twin brothers and a father and a mother. And the women run the house. Kim has a sidekick, Ron, who's in love with her. And Kim chooses to be with everyone else under the sun until she later discovers in the final season that because no one else is, she can't be with anyone else because they were all honeypots, that some of them honeypotted her that actually tried to take her out. And Ron was so incompetent, he couldn't even save her from it. But she discovered, okay, all of her options that she tried did not work, and now Ron is here, and he's been here the whole time. And so then she goes with Ron, and Ron is so incompetent that he, a lot of the things that he helps with throughout the mission is like through happenstance and chance, like it's not genuine, like, capability and whatever have you. And the only man that Kim listens to is Wade, the black guy who's in the closet on the computer all the time, the engineer kind of dude, or computer engineering kind of dude. And she's the face of everything, so she takes credit for everything that he's doing behind the scenes. Whereas SheGo comes from a family that worked together quite well. She had 5 brothers. One was twins, so they had Higo, Migo, and the Wago twins. I think Higo, Migo, the Wago twins. And there's another one, because there has to be 5, and that's only 4. Or maybe there was 5 total of them. But she grew up in a family with well-structured men that led her, and they had a little rocket thing or rainbow thing that flew out from the sky and hit them one day when they were playing in their treehouse or something, and they all become superheroes. That's where they all get their color from, and their glow. She gets her glowing hands or whatever. They did everything as a team. They were a structured family. The brother, I think Higo, was the leader, and organized the operations and everything. And SheGo is extremely intelligent. She's one of the best in the world in her martial arts capability. She has a degree in, if you even regard degrees, but we're just saying what capabilities they gave her for the show. She has a degree in early childcare development. She actually has a moral compass and high ground because she refused often to cause harm to any disabled children or animals or environment. There were many episodes where she made those morals very clear. And even if Dr. Draken said, "Oh, let's do this," she's like, "No." She actually intervened when he was trying to take a wheelchair from a disabled person, and also refused to fight alligators because they were animals, and also refused to do things that were harmful to the environment. She also, in all of the structure and training that she got growing up, she didn't leave until she was an adult. And when she decided to leave her brothers and go with Dr. Draken, it was because she felt that Dr. Draken would help her accomplish her goals in furtherance in her evil, because she was a good guy before. But the incompetence of her brothers and their leadership led her to enjoy the evil. The more that she fought evil, the more that she enjoyed it, because she wasn't being led correctly. So they did have a good structured family unit, and they did win a lot of things together, but there were still a lot of failures and inconsistencies that she saw, and that was not being mitigated correctly, whatever. And she saw herself above that. And so she went to a man who she thought, an evil man who she thought would match that level of capability and help her carry out things. Because if the good guys couldn't take her capability and put it to good use, then the evil one would. And he did. So she went to Dr. Draken, who, by the way, is an engineer. Right? And yes, Kim Possible and SheGo are arguably two sides of the same coin. Like, in many ways. However, SheGo will listen to Dr. Draken. She works with him as a team. She's more so like lounging around and enjoying herself. She's exceptionally disciplined. She will eat a certain way. She refuses to miss her meals. Like, that's something that will actually tick her off. Missing her meals, the things that she does to upkeep with her body to keep her healthy. She has a strict regimen. She's exceptionally disciplined. Kim Possible is not. She eats tacos. She goes around. She doesn't follow any order or structure. She doesn't listen to her father. She doesn't listen to her parents, really. She's a teenager in high school that's going around trying to like fight crime in the dark without her parents knowing. Where SheGo was operating with her family in the know. They were all working together. There's no secrets. Kim Possible is going around doing things unbeknownst to her family and actually causing her family more harm and danger. And a lot of things that she does do, she's just deciding, okay, this is what I think is in the best interest of the family as a whole. And then she also has men that come along and try to date her, to honeypot her and take her out, or gather information from her to give it to people who are working against her in the interest of her and things like that, and her family. And again, Ron is so incompetent that nothing really go like he can't really do anything. The guy has a naked mole rat, Rufus, which is, he's cute. And he's always like, he's carrying hot sauce in his pocket all the time, and he's got like tacos or whatever. They're kids, and they don't understand pretty much if they're coming or going. And like I said, Wade is really the guy behind the scenes, the computer guy, the black computer guy in the closet, who's doing all of like the work, and then they're the face of it. They go out and actually do it, which happens in real life too. Like, there's always the behind the scenes guy, and then there's someone who comes along and, they're the face of the work. So anyway, SheGo was a good guy. How did she become the villain? Now, well, also the reason that Kim Possible, and for some reason I'm gonna be thinking like, it's so easy to say Kim Kardashian. I don't know why, but Kim Possible, the reason that she's actually not the good guy is because she actually doesn't represent what it means to be a coherent Christian or conservative family. She's actually very feminist, woke. She even shows more of her skin than SheGo does. Like, SheGo is more modest. SheGo has more emotional regulation and control even than Kim Possible does. It takes a lot for her to get angry. And when she finally does, then she's just enraged. She doesn't care. She doesn't really put her energy into much because she understands her level of intellect and capabilities above the person in front of her, so she doesn't even bother wasting her time or energy. Now, the reason SheGo becomes the villain is because she has exceptional capability, just as her brothers do. But she has a lot that needs to be mitigated or led, and she's not having that done adequately. She's being led in a very incompetent manner. And she's not being fulfilled. She's bored. And so as she started to fight the evil, she saw high levels of competence and leadership in the people who were evil. She's like, I'll just do that. I'll just do that. That's where the good leadership is. That's where the competence is. That's where the greatness is. That's where I want to be. Because women need to be great too. Women want to be great. It's just about who's going to lead them to that greatness and who's going to bring out that greatness in them and continue to help grow grow the progression of that greatness. Why am I bringing this example? And SheGo, like, she's stronger than Kim Possible. She's smarter than Kim Possible. Kim Possible cannot often beat SheGo by herself. She can't, like, she has a very hard time. Even with the suit upgrades that she got, like when Kim Possible came out with the glowing white and blue suit, we were all like, "Oh, that's so sick." SheGo was always the same. She had that consistency of the man that was leading her, providing for her, taking care of her needs or whatever, so that she could focus on growing herself to be as capable as she is and continue that growth, so that when they need to carry out their plans, they can do that. And most of the time, SheGo was pissed off with Kim is because she was intervening on her relaxation time in between her mischievousness with Draken, and she didn't have the time to relax in between, their chaos. And she's like, this girl is just pissing me off. She's a feminist and she doesn't like she when you really look back at it, it's really like that. So the reason I'm bringing this up is because there's a lot of women in today's society who are exceptionally capable. I am one of them, by the way, who do not have good men around to lead them. Now, I have an exceptional father. That can only go so far because eventually I have to get married. And if I don't, well, a father can never provide for you what a husband can. That is two completely separate, different roles. I forgot about that. Two completely separate, different roles. And yes, I can do great things with a father, but after a certain point, a woman can't, like, a family can only do so much. You need to start your own family because the work that you do with that family that you create is going to be exponentially higher and more exacerbated with them than you would even do with a father, because God didn't make you to do work with your father and stuff like that. Even the work that I'm doing with my father now is completely unnatural because we have been forced into this position to work together in this manner the last couple of years. Before this happened, like, my dad, I would talk to him probably like once a week or even like sometimes less. That it really didn't bother me. Like, we were just doing our own thing. I was at school. He was, it really didn't make a difference to me because my dad was my dad. Like, we were cool to say, hey man, come visit for the holiday or something, like it, but because of the whistleblowing that we've had to do and the persecution that we received the last couple of years, we've been forced into the position where we're working together constantly all day, every day. And that's not typical. Yeah, families will work together and they'll do great things. But like I said, eventually you have to get married. You have to start a family of your own. Now, women who are capable, who don't have the leadership that they need, like, I don't know, say women who are in, Nala is a good example. She was in OnlyFans. She's exceptionally capable. She's really good at learning languages. She's really good at marketing. She's good at business. She's good at managing money. She's good at, like, organizing. Like, she's good at creating content. She's good at, like, She's a good communicator. Like, she has an array of skills that could be used like in multiple different ways. If she didn't get married, oh my gosh. Because when you have people, for example, like Christians who come along and they're like, okay, well, I want I want you to do that. Like, for example, like she'll make a post and people say, oh, I don't like the way that she did that. And that might be true. She might have done something that she might have made a post or whatever that, doesn't exactly align with how Christians feel like God would appreciate us to behave. But in the grand scheme of things, if you focus on the one thing instead of looking at the bigger picture, you are going to cause someone to turn the opposite direction, because it has to be something of free will, and it has to be something where, I'm trying to find a way how to explain this. It has to be done in a way where the person is choosing themselves. And there's certain things that won't change until, like, a lot of the women who come out of these lifestyles, whether it be trafficking or the OnlyFans, a lot of them don't get out of it or even get better until they find a man, until they actually have a man that comes along and shows them that loving compassion. Because there are things in their brain that literally do not unlock until they have that. Like, it just, women need men. There are certain things, like, men, my father says that men provide a certain physical, spiritual, mental, and emotional and financial peace for women, that they will not realize is there until they're experiencing the benefit of it. Like, women will be more calm. They won't be as anxious. They'll notice that they're actually happier. They'll notice that they aren't complaining about things as much, because men are just doing things consistently to fix things around that woman, so that she doesn't even know that she was even having a problem with these things. Because a lot of times the things that are pissing women off are outside of their view, which is usually why when they come to someone with a problem, they're not saying, oh, fix it, because in their mind, what they see is in front of them, not what's around them. So then they're coming to the person to talk because they're like, I just want to vent, because they don't actually know what the solution is sometimes. And the solution that they think is the solution is not even the actual solution, because they're looking at what's in front of them, not what's around them, or not who put that thing in front of them. They're not looking at the person who's pulling the strings. So the thing that they think is the solution is the very surface level, immediate solution. Right? So a lot of the women that come out of these things, unless they actually have a good man around them, a lot of the things that they do, it's not going to click in the brain. And then, because they need to experience it. This is also why Christ is important, because it's very much an experiential thing. But when you have someone that can give you that experience, then something changes in you. Something fundamentally switches inside of your brain and inside of your heart, because you don't even conceptualize that some of these things are even possible, or that they even exist. Like, it's not a thought in your mind. Like, it's not a piece on the board that can be played. It's not like a square even. It's not like B4 or something. Like, it doesn't exist. There, you don't see it anywhere. It's not an option. It's not a backup plan. It's not a fallback. Like, it does not exist. I don't even know how to explain that, but it doesn't exist. People think that you can just step outside of trauma and different difficult situations and just exist as a functioning regular person, and you could be at the highest levels of functioning, and like one thing can be wrong and then you're punished. and you're the bad guy. And then someone's like, oh, okay. Huh? I'll show you the bad guy. I can be the villain. I'll be the villain, and I'll be it well. And enjoy it too. That's what people will think. Because if you have somebody who's like, I know that I can do great things, I know that I'm capable of doing great things, I want to do great things, and I am, but let me do great things with you. And then you're constantly being met with, oh, but you don't do this, and you don't do this, and you don't do this. It's like, damn, buddy over there, he loves me. He loves everything that I do. He wants to use the things that I do for something, and he's going to give me a purpose, and he's going to make me feel like I have a purpose. And that purpose might be for something so evil and so destructive. But the women don't care, because women need to feel needed too. And especially women who are exceptionally intelligent. Like, they don't care. Like, women who are exceptionally smart do not care about literally anything. Like, a lot of things that they do is kind of like, well, this should be done, or like it makes the most sense. Like, SheGo was the bad guy, but she had morals. She wouldn't she wouldn't interfere with disabled people. She wouldn't interfere with children. She had a degree in early child care development. She wouldn't hurt animals or the environment. Like, she had her own moral compass that she had from before that she kept up with, because she was like, that's just messed up. And if I'm above that, if I like, why would, if my power level is up here, why am I interfering with someone whose power level is down here? Sometimes it's not even because there's even an emotional value behind it. It's just like, it doesn't even make sense. Why would I lower myself to something that foolish? Like, it just, that would make me an extremely stupid or weak individual. And there's just a rationalization. So people, women who are exceptionally smart, they will rationalize a lot of things and rationalize themselves into doing things that really are egregious, but they're like, well, casualty today, fun tomorrow. And a lot of things SheGo did was because, well, it was just fun, because she could. A lot of the chaos that she did was because she just enjoyed the chaos. It was just fun. And if you don't channel someone who's a woman's intelligence, who's capable and intelligent, who could be used to good things, if she doesn't have a man channeling that to something that's going to direct it in the right manner, then it's going to become, well, how can I serve my financial interest? Because eventually she did like spending money, and on makeup and hair and all these other things, but a lot of women do today, very self-indulgent, self-interested things, because now it was all about her, and she didn't really care about anything other than herself, really, and her agenda, what she wanted to do, and who was going to help her accomplish that. That was pretty much it. It was what it was, and she would only do what she wanted to do. If she didn't want to do it, she would straight up laugh in Draken's face and be like, well, this is not going to work this time. Kim Possible will actually beat you with this. And if he managed to win, then she would be unpleasantly surprised that they actually managed to get away with that plan. And then she'd go back to like doing her nails or something, just minding her own business. She didn't care. She did not care whether the wind blew left or right. Like, it didn't matter so long as she accomplished what she needed to. And most women who are traumatized, they become that way. And a lot of women who are intelligent, who have a lot to offer, if they feel like their value is, if they're not being led the right way, and they're like how her brothers were incompetent. They were incompetent, and their incompetence ended up causing them to lose quite a bit in the end. If a woman is around something like that, who's exceptionally intelligent and capable, at some point in time, she's going to feel neglected, like she doesn't matter, and that nobody cares about her, because it's like, okay, well, because she's not being put to use in any fashion. She's not needed. She's not needed. She's not wanted. and she's going to go where she's needed and wanted, because women need to be needed. Men need to be needed, but in a completely different way, in a very mental and an emotional way. Women need to feel like they are needed. If a woman feels like like someone doesn't want her around, she's just not going to say anything. Like, it's just going to be a very avoiding kind of thing. Like, okay, whatever, like, bye. The woman who presses forward is typically like a very sick individual, because usually women are self-inflicting. They're not outward inflicting. When a woman gets to the point where she's outwardly inflicting, she's in a very dangerous place. One second, let me check the comments. He said, first marriage didn't work out because my wife was still very attached to her father. Her father did the worst thing a person can do, but she had a Stockholm syndrome type thing for him still. That's crazy. The Bible says when you get married that your priority is your spouse. My father told me today, you need to be married. Like, that is like, he's like, you need a husband. Like, he tells me all the time, like, you need to be married. I'm like, I get it. I get it, man. Anyways, blah, 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 blah. Patience. I know, in God's time, I don't know. I'm working on it. I don't know. Like, whatever, it'll happen when it happens. But, yeah, parents should not be, that's just, parents shouldn't be holding their kids back like that. And my father wants me to be married. It's just, and people, honestly, sorry, and I can only speak from my personal experience. That's why I'm using my experience. People call my dad all the time to ask to court me. My dad gets DMs all the time from people who are like, oh, I'm very interested. I like your daughter, or the stuff she does or whatever. I don't know how men talk. I don't know. And I don't care. But he's not going to approve me to go with some scumbag or someone who doesn't, meet his criteria of what a good man would be. Because again, if I went with an incompetent man who actually caused me more harm than benefit, especially after my experience, I would become an evil villain. And I'm not saying this just to be like, oh, whatever. Like, people, I think, really do not understand how serious this problem is. And it is constructed this way on purpose because the people at the top understand human nature very well. They understand the tendencies of people and what they will do. And they do this in a specific manner because a lot of the people that they target are highly intelligent people, especially the women. Especially the women. I mean, and it's ultimately to destroy the men. And the women who are incompetent, like the women who are competent, like me, and can get an exceptional amount of work and things done with like almost nothing. And especially my dad, way worse, or better, but like worse in consequence for these people. If I went sideways, it would be easy for someone like me to go take out men at the top, straight up and down, because I've gotten myself to places and to do things without the grimy behavior that women typically have to do, like sleeping around and all these other things, because I was guided by a man who was creating the circumstances for me to do certain things to help people. We were doing things to help people. And that's why I was conducting myself in a respectful and high level boundary manner with people. If I became the villain, I wouldn't even need to sleep with people to do awful things. And this is what people don't even understand about, like, I really want this to make sense. And I know that it's kind of like the people, I'm not even, well, not really people, because the men aspect of things, I really can't say anything because I'm not a man. The women in society that become the most exceptional villains that go around doing the most evil and get away with it are women like SheGo, often who have their own level of, the ones who are very competent. They might have started out with a good structure. They had men. They learned the structure of having a man around. Go out and find another man to replace that structure, except in evil, who will do the highest level of competent crime for and with them. Like I said, Dr. Draken was an engineer. Let that sink in for a second. And then someone who can allow her to progress her growth physically, mentally, emotionally, dietary, like whatever she needed to progress, to be exceptional at evil, he was able to create the circumstances for her to do that. And she did. There are so many women in society like that today. And it's so easy for it to become that way because there are a bunch of men who are exceptionally incompetent, and they do not understand the nature of women. They do not understand the perception or the intentions of women. And they will go around doing things unintentionally, thinking that, and maybe sometimes intentionally, doing things, saying that they're trying to do one thing. Oh, well, I want you to do this, or I want you to do that. And pushing these women to go completely the opposite direction. And that's so mad to me. That's so crazy to me, because the men who are the most evil at the very top need the competent and capable women. They need them to continue, because the women who are exceptionally capable like SheGo are the ones that help them get away with what they're getting away with. You can't get a stupid woman to do what SheGo was doing for the men at the very, very top. That's what's up. That's what's up. At the very top, you can't, because they need to know how to organize. They need to understand finance. They need to understand loyalty and stability. They need to understand unity. They need to know how to work together with men competently. They need to have exceptional emotional control like Shio did. They need to be able to organize and market and other things. They need to be good communicators. They need to be polymoths. They need to be good at, they need to have a level of exceptionality across the board, so that whatever environment they're placed in, they can do whatever needs to be done to get the job done. This is what people don't understand. You cannot put stupid women in positions like that, because they will never complete their mission. And you need women, because women are the ones who recruit other people to do exceptional levels of evil. And there's only so much that SheGo could even do with Dr. Draken, because she had a certain moral principle that stuck with her because of her training growing up. She refused to hurt vulnerable, disabled people, children, animals, and the environment. There's some things that she just wouldn't participate in. She's like, screw it, no. And there's going to be a clash. It's also why it's also interesting, because in society they will show that someone like SheGo, who came from a good home, is actually the bad guy, and becomes the bad guy, not because the circumstance or what have you. Not even the whole show, like, SheGo has better training than Kim Possible by far across the board. But all people see is the fact that, she robs sometimes. She helps Dr. Draken rob places sometimes, or, like with evil plans or whatever. Whereas Kim Possible is like a reckless feminist woke teenager, with no respect for her family. She's friends with a simp who's friends with her because he likes her and is hoping to eventually be with her, and then follows around and does this stuff because they've been friends since whatever. And they pretty much, go around as young teenagers, inserting themselves in places that they shouldn't be and putting their families at risk, all unbeknownst to their family. Just doing things in complete secret. Then they eat tacos in their free time. So it's very interesting. It's very interesting to me. And by the way, that comment is crazy to me about your first marriage, and RIP. I'm sorry to your first marriage. But I don't understand that, because I was married before, as people know. And look, if I ever called my dad and said and complained about something and I was wrong, my dad was like, you're wrong, and this is how you're going to fix it. A good father is going to be realistic and let his child have consequences for their actions, and also instruct them and tell them directly when they're doing something wrong. My father doesn't mince words. He doesn't. And he's also not forceful. He understood since I was a kid that if I did not want to do something, I just wasn't going to do it. I just didn't care. You're not going to force me. If you try to force me to do something, I'm doing the opposite. Like, I literally don't care, because if you're forcing me, you could tell me that if you don't do this, you could tell me, if I don't know you and you're like, if you don't do this, you're gonna die. I'd be like, let me take death. like like with the pandemic. Oh, if you don't take this, you're gonna die. Okay. Well, there's an equal chance of death, and I'll take natural death. Thank you. And I'll enjoy it too. Thank you. Like, you're not. I will not capitulate. The only people that I will let govern me in my life is God, my father, because I don't have a husband, and a future husband. When I'm married, it's God, my husband, and then other family. Like, my husband will come before everything except God. Putting your father before your husband is mad. That's sick. That's actually sick. It's the impossible possibility of SheGo, because it's like, you would see that she's the villain off first glance. But in reality, when you assess the circumstances of the entirety of the situation, it's an entirely different thing. But my concern is, that there is a lot of talent that is being put to waste, because, again, SheGo became a villain because her brothers were incompetent and their mistakes cost them a lot, and her as well. And they wouldn't take her advice or opinion. And there was consequences. Which also shows the importance of working together as a team. And Higo had a large ego. I think it was Higo who had the huge ego. Haha, very funny. But whether people want to understand or not, I think, and this is like, it's not a thing of like, okay, well, you need to worry about someone else crashing out. That's not even really a thing. It's not like the woke left who's always like, okay, well, if you don't do this, then I'm going to do this. No, 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 no. It's just that every action has an equal and opposite reaction. There's consequences to your actions in life of everything that you do. And at the end of the day, you need to understand to some capacity. Like, if you used to be disrespectful to people, you just get punched in the face. And I think things should go back to that. I'm not even a violent person. I don't like violence, but I wouldn't be upset if life went back to that. And I don't need to put my hands on someone to accomplish something, because that's just not who I am. But I see the need for people to be punched in the face, because less people would do the things that they do if they did. Also, if more Christians followed Isaiah 58, helping the fatherless, the widow, and the oppressed, as God instructs us to, we would be more closely in tuned via the work that we're doing. We would see more closely this stuff, like what we're seeing in the life of Kim Possible versus SheGo. We would see these things more closely in real life. Obviously, I'm using this TV show as an example, but women like SheGo, I see her everywhere. Like, in real life, I've seen women like her the past couple of years who have tried to genuinely kill me. I'm not even kidding. It's not women like Kim Possible. A woman like Kim Possible would never defeat a woman like SheGo. Never. Because SheGo has the discipline of a father and her brothers that she was working with. She had a family structure. She understands order. She understands submission. She understands what her best skill set are as a woman and as a partner to Dr. Draken. She lets Dr. Draken do what he's amazing at while she does what she's amazing at. It's why they are a good team. Now their plans get foiled by Kim Possible and blah blah blah, but in reality, you never win. You never win. A woman who is a feminist or has the structure of feminism in her home will never be a woman who has the structure of a man in her home. I can't say that for men, though, because I've seen men who, maybe their dad died when they were younger, or the dad left, but they did the work to make themselves men, and they're more can have equal capability or more capability than even men who were raised with fathers. But men solve problems, so that's a whole different thing, so that's why I can't really say that. But for women, because women learn experientially, they don't create the circumstances, they learn through experience. This is why someone like Kim Possible would never beat SheGo. And I watch this in real life consistently. It doesn't matter what they have. Like, the discipline and the skill set, the routine and the structure and the order of SheGo is unmatched. And it's the same thing I've watched in real life. And that's mad. Because the people, like I said, you're not doing things in relation to people because you're like, oh, I don't want this person to pop off on me. No. It's just an understanding what needs to happen to get people where you want them to go or where they need to go. If you see someone who is struggling in something and you think, okay, well, this is not the most Christian way to go about it. This is also why men are meant to lead in churches. Because they, like I said earlier, they see the progression. They see your potential and your progression. They hand you the tools along the way to get where you need to go. They're not really going to be as judgmental. They're going to be more understanding and more compassionate because they can see if you're 87% where you need to be or 15%, and they can mitigate for the rest. They can add and subtract in real time, and They know your progression is because they are feeding you the solutions in real time. Whereas women are constantly pissed off and they're like, well, you just need to do this. And the girl's sitting there like, well, how do you expect me to do this? Like, I just outlined the circumstance for you and I don't have the solution and you don't. So how do you expect me to do this? How am I going to create the environment around this to do what you just said? You're telling me outcomes and I need a solution that neither of us even know how to get to. So how are we going to do this? Pray. Okay, got it. That's not the answer either. Because even women who are Christian, who pray, who do not have good men around, can be delusional. Because there are things that women cannot see and things that women cannot mitigate. And prayer does not automatically give you the mind of a man. And you would need a mind of a man. And you would need to think like a man and operate like a man, perceive like a man, and read actions like a man in order for you to get what you need to get done. And God does not answer your prayers by turning you transgender to solve a problem. uh, Women need men. They need men that match their capability. And if they don't have a man that matches their capability, they will stir into an oblivion and become exceptionally evil. Because something has to take their attention and something has to take their captivity. The captivity of their mind, like, has to captivate them. Women are like that. And if there's no good men around doing it, the evil men will gladly come and scoop people up. That's how they recruit spies. There's a lot of women that are recruited as spies. I don't know how men are, but I've seen this with women. There's a lot of women that are recruited as spies that are just, again, exceptionally capable, intelligent, and whatever else their skill set is, that are underappreciated or just not fulfilled. And then the bad guy will come along and be like, hey, got you. And women have a lot of fun. The chaos that even is exciting for them. Best viewer. Go away. Go away. I don't know what that link is and I'm not clicking it. Go away. No, I'm not going to do that. In society, we have a really messed up view that women can do things on their own. And there's a lot of things that women can do. But when women get to the point where, for example, if I got to the point where I was like, okay, I don't need a man. If I accept it in my mind, oh, no, I don't need a man. I can do this by myself. I will do this by myself. And I will develop the discipline and the mental fortitude that I need to overcome a lot of these situations alone. I'm training myself into the mindset for villainy. It is. Because as a woman, you have to do very awful things to yourself mentally to get to that place. And anyone who says otherwise is a liar. Because what women have to do mentally to come to peace in difficult situations alone is terrifying. You have to remove your compassion, your empathy. You have to remove your softness. And that's also why the chaos is so appealing, because it makes you feel better when you're numb and you're like void of anything. This is also why women who are in situations that they feel traumatized or whatever have you, um, they don't feel very much. Like, for a very long time, I was numb. I was living on a numb filter for a very, very long time. Like, I didn't even know that I could feel certain things for myself. I feel a lot of things for other people. I have a lot of compassion and empathy for people. I genuinely cry for other people. I will not shed tears for myself. I like I can't in a lot of like I can't in a lot of ways. Like sometimes, but like like never. I don't really like if it's for me, if it's a situation for me, I'm like, yeah, whatever. I don't care. Like I don't care. If it's for someone else, I'm pissed because I'm like, why would someone like why would you do that to that person? Like why would you, it makes me angry. But for myself, I can't feel very much. As of late though, I've been feeling quite a lot. Women who come out of traumatic situations often are on a numb filter and they are looking for any reason, which is also why a lot of people are confused why I behave the way that I do. And it is because I listen to my father, because I know how to take direction, and I account for my bias that way, or my blindness to certain things because of that. Because I understand what I'm dealing with, I acknowledge what I'm dealing with, and I work through it in real time. I allow myself to experience things as they are when I can. When I'm presented with the opportunity to experience an emotion, I allow myself to experience it. My father says that's the only way like you can actually deal with things is if you accept the emotion for what it is, experience it in real time, and work through it in real time. And then you can function at the same time. And that is the truth. You can never like just as soon as you start passing your feelings away like they don't exist, well, that's when you're in problems. So again, the numbness, yes, that is a very real thing. A lot of things cannot, when you cannot feel certain things, you can't come to certain conclusions. And I'm not talking about, oh, like a sociopath or a psychopath. You still feel remorse. You still feel happiness. You still feel sadness. I'm talking about how you feel personally about yourself is like I'm not depressed, but it's like a lot of things I'm like, yeah, whatever, man. Like I just, okay, like you want to do that? Whatever. Like not really anything moves me. Nothing moves me. Like nothing moves me, nothing really bothers me. Like unless injustice really bothers me. Injustice really pisses me off. It makes me sad. It makes me very sad. But for myself personally, I'm just like, well, bro, like I don't care. Like a lot of things just don't make a difference to me. Like I don't know if a lot of people would understand that, but the point is you are not going to be able to come to certain conclusions with yourself as a woman until a man comes along and does something to you that brings out an experience in you that makes you feel something that you've never felt before. And then you're like, and it doesn't even have to be much. It doesn't have to be this big extravagant thing that makes you feel like it doesn't have to be like huge and extravagant. It just has to be genuine and something that they've not experienced before. And when that experience happens, then something flips in their brain and they're like, "Oh, whoa, I didn't calculate for this. I didn't mitigate for this. I didn't know that this was a viable potential. I didn't know it was a reality. It didn't exist in my mind, and now it does." And then they become nervous or scared about that. But if they're mature, they'll embrace it and try to work towards it and move closer to it instead of like moving away. But I have a father, again, that I listen to his advice. If you're like SheGo, you decide to just go rogue, you're kind of like, well, you'll find that person that makes you feel that. But what makes you not feel numb is the chaos. There's genuine love and kindness that will make you kind of like open up, like bloom like a flower in a lot of ways. That open up to things that you didn't think were possible or could exist in your mind or your heart. And then there's the chaos that makes you feel equally good, but it's obviously chaos. There's more things that are done in a very different manner, and you're going to chase that in a very different way. But someone will come along and make someone feel that way, and they will go with that because they need to. It's going to unlock something, but it's not the same as love, genuine love and kindness. That will do something to, I think, whenever I experience genuine love or kindness in any capacity after, my experiences, I always feel like crying, and I don't cry. I do not cry, and I don't like crying. I think it's my personality as well. Like I don't think it's just, everything. It's just I don't care for it. It doesn't really solve anything for me. It doesn't do much for me. But as of late, I have struggled to hold back tears, and it's made me exceptionally angry because I don't like that. But that is something that opens up new things in the mind that could not be brought out by like direct family or whatever else. It needs to be something else around you. And that makes you see the potential for doing things more in a more positive way and things like that. If you have people that are constantly surrounding you, that are constantly telling you, oh, you need to do this or you need to do that or in this way or that way, or they feel like they're just judging your existence, you can't breathe around people because it's constantly something wrong. You're just going to go the complete opposite way. You're just not going to care. You're not going to care. Like at all. Like there's a lot of things in this world I just don't care about. And the opinions of people is most of that. The only reason I've ever cared about the opinions of people the last couple of years is because it affected my ability to breathe oxygen. Now I don't care. When it comes to people in large, I like helping people, but no one is going to tell me like, once you start telling me like, my brain just shuts off. I'm like, no, that's not what we're doing. And it's for someone who's actually exceptionally capable as well and intelligent, like SheGo was or whatever, if you're using that example. The audacity of people like talking to a certain way is kind of like, okay, well, I'm just not even gonna be here. Like, it's like, I understand why people they're like, I'm just gonna smoke, I'm just gonna drink, I'm just gonna do drugs. Because it's like, if I'm outperforming you and I'm doing this, how are you gonna tell me? How are you gonna tell me what to do? How are you going to tell me? How are you going to step to me and tell me anything? But that's not the way. Our society is breeding villains like mad. And I'm sure it's intentional. And I think a lot of the men understand like what they're doing, the way they interact with women. The women they know what they're doing is wrong. They just don't see the bigger picture of like what they're being used to do when they do things. They fully know what they're doing wrong in the moment. They just don't see on the bigger scale. I think because I do always read or whatever. I should probably read something. Wait a second. Wait, what? And I'm really the person. The only reason I, and I think many other people, choose not to fall into evil is because we understand from experience how awful it is, one, and two, like, if I was a Christian, there would no be, like, if I was not a Christian, there would be no incentive for me to be a good person. With the way that the world is, how awful it is, there would be no reason not to be SheGo. Not to go find some really intelligent engineer that would just lead me to, like, complete chaos and destruction. Because the world is a very awful place that's filled with literally no morals. And I would just pick and choose which morals I wanted to keep or not. Like SheGo, don't harm the disabled, children, animals, environment, all those other things. Which is messed up. You shouldn't hurt people in general, but like, if you're doing evil, you're doing evil. Without God, there's no actual reason not to do those things. You might be like, okay, I just want to be a good person. But when people say, oh, I just want to be a good person, they end up actually, if you let them talk long enough, you actually see that all of their morals contradict themselves. So they're actually not good people at all. And it's all dependent on how they feel in that moment. And that even switches. Whereas SheGo, even though she was a bad guy, she had clear cut morals across the board, principles, where she was like, I will not do these things. This is my principle. In any scenario, I will not do that. Like, you know what I mean? But a lot of people who go through situations like this, a good family structure, God and a father, or mother, if you have that in an optimal situation, you will have a good father and a mother. A good family home and God is what keeps people in intact. And then also, if you've experienced something, you're like, this is so messed up and so evil, I would never be able to be a part of that. Quite frankly, that is my reason. I am so disgusted by evil and the things that I have experienced, that I know that they're doing to other people, that I see is happening to other people. But I've always been a person that hates injustice anyways. I've always been that way, like since I was a kid. Like I can't stand what I can't stand. Um and nothing will change that. And on a certain level, when you get to a certain point, you understand that any indulgence in evil will lead you down the route of the very evil you experienced, because all roads lead to Rome, or you at the very least will be creating the circumstances across the board for the people who did the evil to you to continue the evil to others. And that's not something I can stomach. Not at all. A lot of people are like, "Oh, I don't, I'm afraid to go to hell." Blah blah. I'm like, being afraid to go to hell is not the problem. I would have gone in a Rolls Royce if I really wanted to, because the fear of anything is not enough. You need to have a purpose. This is also why people can never, you can't overcome people with purpose, because there's a reason. You always have to have a reason. If you don't have a reason, you'll never accomplish something. This is why a lot of women are also becoming psychotic, because they don't have a reason. They don't have a purpose. Like, our society is completely lacking purpose. Purpose and reason for literally anything. For life, for work. The way that they've put one, I won't even go there, but you get the point. I think I'm going to read a little bit so that I end on a more like concise note, if you will, and more I don't want to say more positive, but something with, you know, a biblical foundation that we can come back to, because I don't want to sound like it's all like hopeless or whatever else. No, it's just, or even negative, because that's really not the case. For me, this was more like, it is what it is, but also understanding that leadership from men is exceptionally important. Understanding, creating circumstances, and having competent women around, and making sure that the men are working in coordination with those competent women, because then, if not, those women who are competent will eventually find their way to those men and destroy them, because it's exceptionally easy to destroy competent men when they deal with incompetent women, because those incompetent women are exceptionally treacherous, whereas the competent women who work with the evil people actually understand, even though they are treacherous in some manners, obviously because they're evil, they understand the importance of working together to accomplish the goal, and they're better at working together because they know where their strengths are at, and they do actually have some level of loyalty and submission that stupid women or incompetent women, and women without the foundation of structure do not have. And that makes a boatload of a difference in accomplishing tasks. And I see everything out as war at this point. I'm not even gonna lie. Like, everything that I look at is war. If I get a strange text message, I think it's war. If I get a DM, in my mind, it's war. Like, not even in my mind. Like, it is. Like, we're like, the Matrix is real. Like, it is war. Everything is literally war. And a lot of things are more chaotic when women don't have actually a man that is next to them that they can trust, because then it's like, okay, what are you? Like, who are you? Who do you work for? What do you want? Like, what reason do you have to like message me and talk to me about anything? Like, yeah, sure, like, I made a post, but like, what do you really want? You know what I mean? It's like that. Which is also why, again, having the structure of family and me having a father is important, because my father vetting people makes the difference. Because if someone speaks to my father, I'll trust them 1,000 times more automatically, because that shows a lot in character. And then my father's judgment on that man, if he approves them, will make me way more open to trusting and working with that man in general, because it's like, okay, now I have someone saying, okay, yeah, you're actually a decent human being, a man that understands the actions of men. Now I know I can give my capability to you to work with you for something. Anyways, let me read. I wanted to go over that because people think I'm a villain, and I'm like, if you want me to show you a villain, I really could. I really could. But I know that what people are doing at the bottom is because the people at the top is exploiting the tendencies of the people at the bottom, because they want people like me. There's many. I've seen many. I know many. I'm watching this happen to many. They want people like me to become a villain and even more people like my father, to be honest, so that egregious things can happen. And I won't be the villain, not because, well, they want people like me to be like, oh, you're pissing me off. You want me to do this. I'm going to do the opposite. And now I'm going to become the villain, which is a very feminine thing to do, which is why when men are like, oh, you don't like what I say, so I'm going to say this anyways. I'm like, that's weird because women do that to spit in people's face. That's what women do to be villains. But I don't know. I'm not a man. People want me to look at what's in front of me and be like, I'm going to be an evil villain because you in front of me are pissing me off and trying to strong arm me into doing the right thing. So now I'll avoid doing the right thing and do the bad thing. But I know the people at the top are the ones who are actually betting on that. And so I'm like, I'll flip the bird to everybody. Just do what my father instructs me to do, and God. And my father would never instruct me to be the villain because he wants my success. He wants me to have a family. He wants me to go to heaven and have salvation. He wants me to do good things in this world. And yeah, and I would never choose also to be the villain. So maybe I'll joke about it in the future. I'll still joke about that. I'll be like, well, today I'm the villain. But I'm never actually going to be the villain. I don't have it in me. I don't. And the more that I open my heart to anything really, and the more that I experience personally, the harder that is even becoming to think about. Because people in certain situations need to experience compassion personally. They need to think that they deserve compassion. They need to think that they deserve love and kindness and that they are human and that they have a purpose and they have value. And they might know that themselves personally. I know all the things that are great about me. My father's been telling me and showing me my whole life, and I watched him teach me these things my whole life. I know what I'm great at, but it's different when you experience certain things interpersonally, if you know what I mean. I have my ginger tea. Tea is for awesome people. So I'll read a little bit, just so I close on a good note, I guess. I'm on chapter 14 of Isaiah. So I'll read that one chapter. I guess you said, this message is insightful and truly needed in this sick society. Most people won't understand what you're saying, nevertheless. That's what makes being different so important. I would love to meet your father. He sounds like a wise man. Hearing your words is the reflection, which is amazing to hear in this society. Thank you, Ahmad. That's very kind. Yeah, the grace of God and my father alone. He is an awesome guy, honestly. And I don't say things just to say things. My dad has shown through the experience of life that he's an exceptional man. The father is awesome. And yeah, reach out to him on X if you want to see more insight, like the stuff. If you like what I talk about, you'll love looking at his posts or some of the shows that we do on the Karis Project. His X handle is DJS Richardson, and he always posts really insightful things. And as a man, I think, you'll appreciate some of the things that he talks about. I always recommend people on here, the men especially. I always recommend my dad's page to them, because if you like what I'm saying, you're gonna enjoy much more interacting with him on X than even listening to me on here. But it is an important and insightful thing, like you said, because we are dulling our population, and women are ruling the society. And in women ruling this society, they're destroying the women who have the capability to run circles around the ones that are complaining with their eyes closed. Like, if I really, anyways, I don't even want to think about it because I shouldn't. Chapter 14. I'll do this quick and then. At what age did I realize it was important to follow my father's guidance? I'll tell you what, very briefly. When I was a toddler, or when I was a baby, actually, I was unlawfully taken from my dad, and given as a permanent ward of the crown. And I was there for a couple of years or a few years, whatever. And my dad fought the entirety of the time to get me back by himself. He was like 22 years of age at the time. And he was one of two to get his child back out of permanent ward of the crown. And they had completely severed his rights, but he had got me back. The other person who did was a woman, which I tell people all the time shows who my father is. I was being abused very badly in there, but he got me back. He fought by himself and took on the government himself at 22 years of age. He was studying neuroscience at the time because he wanted to be a brain surgeon. And I believe he was going to do it. He was going to university at the age of 8. My dad's an exceptionally smart guy and tested off the charts for his IQ. But experientially, I learned, even as a toddler, that listening to my father's guidance was good. And he says all the time that he learned with me that I was an exceptionally stubborn child. So if he tried to force me to do anything, then I would just do the opposite. And I would literally try to fight him. He was telling me today when I was talking to him about it, because we were talking about the stream I was going to do. And he was like, you would literally try, keyword try, to fight me if I tried to force you to do something, even as a toddler, like a little kid, because I was just adamant that I was not going to be forced. And that's typical with children who are traumatized as well. They just don't want to, they know that force is wrong. Even if your parent is just trying to be like, oh, you need to eat these carrots, they're good for you. You know, you're going to have like a whole raging fit. So, and that's not the exact example, but you get the point. I seen my dad, what he did, even at a young age, and I knew my dad was a decent guy. Like, he was a normal dad. Well, not a normal dad, an exceptional dad, but I mean normal in the sense that he was a loving and caring father. And as I got older, you know, like whenever I didn't listen to my dad, I would get consequences. He would let me experience the consequences of life, and sometimes he would discipline me as well. And I learned again through experience that when I didn't listen to my father, I had egregious consequences that I didn't like. So in order to skip the discomfort and get straight to the end result that I want to acquire, I decided to just start listening to my father, to skip all the burden and just get, again, what I want, which is the success of the situation. It doesn't need to be my express desire. It's just the end result. The success of the result is what I'm looking for, because I'm a task-oriented person and result-oriented person. I don't really care how it's done as long as it gets done in a efficient and effective manner. And of course, as a Christian, there's going to be Christian principles behind that, but you get the point. So it was through experience. And my father says that a father is the one who's going to give that experience to a child. Or the first person a child learns to trust is the father, because it's through experience. But yeah, every time I never listened to my dad, I had very bad consequences. Very uncomfortable and very painful consequences that I very much did deserve, because it was my fault. So yeah, listen to your parents, especially your fathers, because they are creating circumstances for your success. They know what they're talking about if they're good. Um, okay, let me try to read some of this. A little bit before bed. It's a little bit of a longer thing, but that's okay. Isaiah chapter 14. For the Lord will have mercy on Jacob, and will yet choose Israel, and set them in their own land, and the strangers shall be joined with them, and they shall cleave to the house of Jacob, and the people shall take them, and bring them to their place. And the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of the Lord for servants and handmaids. And they shall take them captives, whose captives they were, and they shall rule over their oppressors. And it shall come to pass in that day, in the day that the Lord shall give thee rest from thy sorrow, and from thy fear, and from the hard bondage wherein thou wast made to serve. That thou shalt take up this proverb against the king of Babylon, and say, how hath the oppressor seized, the golden city seized? The Lord hath broken the staff of the wicked, and the scepter of the rulers. He who smote the people in the wrath with a continual stroke, he that ruled the nations in anger, is persecuted, and none hindereth. The whole earth is at rest, and is quiet, they break forth into singing. Yea, the fir trees rejoice at thee, at the cedars of Lebanon, saying, since thou art laid down, no feller is come up against us. Hell from beneath is moved from thee, for thee, to meet thee at thy coming. It stirreth up the dead for thee, even all the chief ones of the earth. It hath raised up from their thrones all the kings of the nations. Sin begins with Lucifer. This is a little passage. Sin originated with him who, next to Christ, had been most honored of God, and who stood highest in power and glory among the inhabitants of heaven. Before his fall, Lucifer was first of the covering cherubs, holy and undefiled. Lucifer might have remained in favor with God, beloved and honored by all the angelic host, exercising his noble powers to bless others and to glorify his Maker. Instead of seeking to make God supreme in the affections and allegiance of his creatures, it was Lucifer's endeavor to win their service and homage to himself. Great Controversy, page 493 and 494. Something that I'll probably read a page or two as well. Also, shout out to my hair. It's actually getting long. Or longer. Yeah, it's actually growing. I was thinking the other day, I was like, should I? No. No. Verse 10. All they shall speak and say unto thee, art thou also become weak as we? Art thou become like unto us? Thy pomp is brought down to the grave, and the nose of thy vials. The worm is spread under thee, and the worms cover thee. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou come down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven, I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. Not the birds. Sorry, thank you. I mean, sorry. I meant to say my bad, and then I said thank you. Like, what the heck? Um, I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. Yet thou shalt be brought down to hell, to the side of the pit. They that see thee shall narrowly look upon thee, and consider thee, saying, Is this the man that made the earth to tremble, that did shake kingdoms, that made the world as a wilderness, and destroyed the cities thereof, that opened not the house of his prisoners? All the kings of the nations, even all them of them, lie in glory, every one in his own house. But thou art cast out of thy grave like an abominable branch, and as the raiment of those that are slain, thrust through with a sword, that go down to the stones of the pit, as a carcass trodden under feet. There's a little passage that says, The circle of love is broken, part 1. Pride in his own glory nourished is for Isaiah 14, verse 12 to 14. Pride in his own glory nourished the desire for supremacy. The high honors conferred upon Lucifer were not appreciated as the gift of God and called forth no gratitude to the Creator. He glorified in his brightness and exaltation and aspired to be equal with God. He was beloved and reverenced by the heavenly host. Angels delighted to execute his commands, and he was clothed with wisdom and glory above them all, working with mysterious secrecy, for a time concealing his real purpose under an appearance of reverence for God. He endeavored to excite dissatisfaction concerning the laws that governed heavenly beings. Yeah. Intim- 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 intimating? Intimating. Intimating? Is this a word? Is this the I'm sorry, I have to look. Intimating means imply. Oh, it comes from the word intimate. That's what I thought. Imply or to hint, and then intimate, but intimating. Okay. Working with mysterious secrecy, and for a time concealing his real purpose under the appearance of reverence for God, he endeavored to excite dissatisfaction concerning the laws that governed heavenly beings, intimating that they imposed an unnecessary restraint. Since their natures were holy, he urged that the angels should obey the dictates of their own will. He sought to create sympathy for himself by representing that God had dealt unjustly with him in bestowing supreme honor upon Christ. He claimed that in aspiring to greater power and honor, he was not aiming at self-exaltation, but was seeking to secure liberty for all the inhabitants of heaven, that by this means they might attain to a higher state of existence. God in his great mercy bore along with Lucifer, though he had forsaken his position as covering cherub. Yet if he had been willing to return to God, acknowledging the Creator's wisdom and satisfied to fill the place appointed him in God's great plan, he would have been reinstated in his office. But pride forbade him to submit. He persistently defended his own course, maintained that he had no need of repentance, and fully committed himself in the great controversy against his Maker. All the powers of his master mind were now bent to the work of deception to secure the sympathy of the angels that had been under his command, all whom he could not subvert and bring fully to his side. He accused of indifference to the interests of heavenly beings. The very work which he himself was doing, he charged upon those who remained true to God, and to sustain his charge of God's injustice towards him, he restored to misrepresent of he resorted to misrepresentation of the words and acts of the Creator. Great Controversy, 495 to 497. Number 20. Thou shalt not be joined with them in burial, because thou hast destroyed thy land and slain thy people. The seed of evildoers shall not be renowned. Prepare slaughter for his children for the iniquity of their fathers, that they do not rise, nor possess the land, nor fill the face of the world with cities. For I will rise up against them, saith the Lord of hosts, and cut off from Babylon the name, and remnant, and son, and nephew, saith the Lord. I will also make it a possession for the bittern and pools of water, and I will sweep it with the besom of destruction, saith the Lord of hosts. Assyria will be punished. The Lord of hosts hath sworn, saying, Surely as I have thought, so shall it come to pass, and as I have purposed, so shall it stand, that I will break the Assyrian in my land, and upon my mountains tread him under foot. Then shall his yoke depart from off them, and his burden depart from off their shoulders. This is the purpose that is purposed upon the whole earth, and this is the hand that is stretched out upon all the nations. Oh, there's another thing. For the Lord of hosts hath purposed, and who shall disannul it? And his hand is stretched out, and who shall turn it back? The Philistines will be punished. In the year that King Ahaz died was this burden. Rejoice not thou, whole Palestina, because the rod of him that smote thee is broken. For out of the serpent's root shall come forth a cockatrice, and his fruit shall be a fiery flying serpent. And the firstborn of the poor shall feed, and the needy shall lie down in safety. And I will kill thy root with famine, and he shall slay thy remnant. Howl, O gate, cry, O city, thou whole Palestina art dissolved. For there shall come from the north a smoke, and none shall be alone in his appointed times. What shall one then answer the messengers of the nation? That the Lord hath founded Zion, and the poor of his people shall trust in it. There's like a little passage here called The Circle of Love is Broken, Part 2, because the other one was Part 1. And it says, God, in this for Isaiah 14, verse 12 to 14. God in his wisdom permitted Satan to carry forward his work until the spirit of disaffection ripened into active revolt. It was necessary for his plans to be fully developed, that their true nature and tendency might be seen by all. Until fully developed, sin would not appear the evil thing it was. Heretofore, it had no place in the universe of God, and holy beings had no conception of its nature and malignity. They could not discern the terrible consequences that would result from setting aside the divine law. In his dealing with sin, God could not employ only righteousness and truth. Satan could use what God could not, flattery and deceit. Therefore, it must be demonstrated before the inhabitants of heaven as well as of all the worlds that God's government was just, his law perfect. Satan had made it appear that he himself was seeking to promote the good of the universe. The true character of the usurper and his real object must be understood by all. he must have time to manifest himself by his wicked works. Had he been immediately blotted from existence, they would have served God from fear rather than from love. The influence of the deceiver would not have been fully destroyed, nor would the spirit of rebellion have been utterly eradicated. Evil must be permitted to come to maturity for the good of the entire universe. Through ceaseless ages, Satan must more fully develop his principles, that his charges against the divine government might be seen in their true light by all created beings, that the justice and mercy of God and the immutability of his law might forever be placed beyond all question. Satan's rebellion was to be a lesson to the universe through all coming ages, a perpetual testimony to the nature and terrible results of sin. The working out of Satan's rule, its effects upon both men and angels, would show what must be the fruit of setting aside the divine authority. Great Controversy 497 and 499. Pencil. Can't we say? Oh man. Wait. Okay, so next time it will be 15. But wait a second. Oh, to be a woman and to deprive yourself of feeling good. That is boundaries. Do you know what's funny as well? People will tell you solutions like, oh, do you go to therapy? Bro, I'd rather smoke crack than go to therapy. Do not tell me to go to therapy for PTSD when I'm outperforming you with PTSD. Bro, you go to therapy. Pick up the pipe. I don't know. Don't actually pick up the pipe. It's a joke. But honestly, like, please do not, unless you are outperforming me, don't tell me to go to therapy, because therapy didn't make me as great as I am. My father did, and God. When you have a therapy that can do that, maybe I will go to therapy for PTSD or whatever else, you know. The Faithful Torchbearers. This is the Great Controversy by E.G.W. This is the one I'm reading from. Someone at my church gave it to me, a doctor. Him and his wife are very nice. He gave one to me and the other student that was studying mechanical engineering. We were both in the same program. Okay, the Faithful Torchbearers. Not that that even matters, honestly. Like, I feel like all of those things are just like, they just don't. Unless you're a mother. It's also funny, people think that we hate women, but it's like, the only thing that matters to me in life is being a mother. Like, I have done nothing until I'm a mother and a wife, I think. Like, I just, anyway. The Faithful Torchbearers. Amid the gloom that settled upon the earth during the long period of papal supremacy, the light of truth could not be wholly extinguished. In every age there were witnesses for God, men who cherished faith in Christ as the only mediator between God and man, who held the Bible as the only rule of life, and who hallowed the true Sabbath. How much of the world owes to these men, posterity will never know. Oh, how much the world owes to these men. Posterity will never know. That's crazy. They were branded as heretics, their motives impunged, their characters maligned, their writings suppressed. They had censorship. Their writings suppressed, misrepresented, or mutilated. Yet they stood firm, and from age to age maintained their faith in its purity as a sacred heritage for the generations to come. The history of God's people during the ages of darkness that followed upon Rome's supremacy is written in heaven, but they have little place in human records. Few traces of their existence can be found, except in the accusations of their persecutors. It was the policy of Rome to obliterate every trace of dissent from her doctrines or decrees, everything heretical, whether persons or writings. Whether persons or writings she sought to destroy. Expressions of doubt or questions as to the authority of papal dogmas were enough to forfeit the life of rich or poor, high or low. Rome endeavored also to destroy every record of her cruelty towards dissenters. Papal councils decreed that books and writings containing such records should be committed to the flames before the invention of printing. Books were few in number, and in a form not favorable for preservation. Therefore, there was little to prevent the Romanists from carrying out their purpose. Wow. I knew that, though. I knew some of that, though. Hi, Gonzo. How's it going, man? My nose is so itchy. I don't do drugs. I'm always dry. You said, no worries. What verse are we on? I think intimate means to like infer. Yeah. EGW. Nice. It's not for everybody. We are on page 39 in the final paragraph of page 39, chapter The Faithful Torchbearers, Sir Gonzo. He said, I learned this really cool concept in therapy recently called spoon theory that's been really helpful. For instance, I suffer from really rare autoimmune disorder that really affects my diet/energy. Well, what is it? What is the disorder? Yeah, if you don't mind, if it's not too intrusive, sorry. Or I guess second last paragraph is what we're on. No church within the limits of Romish jurisdiction was long left undisturbed in the enjoyment of freedom of conscience. No sooner had the papacy obtained power that she stretched out her arms to crush all that refused to acknowledge her sway, and one after another the churches submitted to her dominion. In Great Britain, primitive Christianity had very early taken root. The gospel received by the Britons in the first centuries was then uncorrupted by Romish apostasy. Uncorrupted. Persecution from pagan emperors, which extended even to these far-off shores, was the only gift that the first churches of Britain received from Rome. Many of the Christians fleeing from persecution in England found refuge in Scotland. Thence the truth was carried to England, to Ireland, and in all these countries it was received with gladness. You said, so my spoons are running low today, and we'll try and keep up. Thanks for sharing. What spoons? What do you mean by spoons? Shout out to all my listeners on X. Please follow me on Rumble on my page, Real Talk with Kaysha. Or if you're following me on YouTube, please follow me on X. I mean, Rumble. If you're following me on YouTube, please follow me on Rumble. Um, when the Saxons invaded Britain, heathenism gained control. The conquerors disdained to be instructed by their slaves, and the Christians were forced to retreat to the mountains and the wild moors. Yet the light, hidden for a time, continued to burn. In, Scot- in Scotland, a century later, it shone out with brightness that extended to far distant lands. From Ireland came the pious Columba and his collaborators, who, gathering about them the scattered believers on the lonely island of Iona, made this the centre of their missionary labours. Among these, Evangelist was an observer of the Bible, Sabbath, and thus this truth was introduced among the people. A school was established at Iona, from which missionaries went out, not only to Scotland and England, but to Germany, Switzerland, and even Italy. Do you know what's interesting about St. Patrick? He was a Sabbath keeper. That's also why he was hunted down so much the way that he was. How come it's not letting you on the screen? I can't see your screen, man. And I certainly cannot hear you.
Can you hear me?
What?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I cannot see you.
I don't know what is going on. Well, there you
go. Okay, great. So my dad's on the stream. We're gonna close the We'll continue the great controversy later, guys. We're gonna close up the idea because I want to get the full picture, because there's a piece missing that I could not connect really. Well, or I couldn't really explain it in the way that comes full circle, and I can tell that something's missing and it's bothering me. So what I briefly described was pretty much SheGo, right? Kim
Yes.
Possible and SheGo. SheGo comes from a well-structured family where she learns from the men in her family, like the certain principles and morals. They were good guys. She became a villain because her brothers were incompetent, but she had they said that she was the best MMA fighter pretty much in the world. She had a high intelligence. She also had gone to college, and she got a degree in early child care development. And she what's it called? She had her own moral principles where she refused to harm disabled people, children, animals, and the environment. She was very disciplined in the way that she ate and what she did with her body. She had a specific routine so that she could be like very capable, and she was very emotionally regulated. You know, far more than even Kim Possible. Kim Possible came from a very feminist, woke ideology home, and had a loser for a boyfriend, a simp for a boyfriend, who, after she had many guys that she went through and just decided that none of them were good, and then he was the only one left, so she went with him. And then she's doing the secret life of Kim Possible, using the work of, the black computer scientist engineer guy, Wade, behind the scenes, and she's the face of it. Meanwhile, SheGo becomes the villain. She leaves her family when she's an adult and goes with Dr. Draken, who's a mechanical engineer and who actually creates the circumstances for her success within their environment so she can grow her capability and become exceptional at evil, where she was underfulfilled with her incompetent brothers because they just didn't realize, I guess, maybe her level of potential. And then Kim Possible can't even match the level of SheGo. But I was saying because also Kim Possible was getting honeypotted by all these guys because she was a feminist, and all these guys were coming along to date her, to destroy her. And Ron was such an idiot, he couldn't even protect her against these guys. He had his naked mole rat that was low-key more competent than him in many episodes. But anyway, the point was society's creating villains because the women who are exceptionally capable, I used myself as an example, even Nala Ray, when you don't have, I was having the I think there's something that I'm missing because I was talking about how you can have, all the capability, but if you don't have someone who's going to lead you in the right direction, you're going to you're going to want to feel good in some way because women need to feel needed, and then they'll go to the chaos because it feels like something. And I mentioned how I've been living my life on numb, like a numb filter for so many years because I couldn't feel anything for myself really. Like I could feel for other people. I feel sad and remorse and happy or whatever, but like nothing really moves me. But when women feel love and compassion that's genuine, it doesn't even have to be extravagant, it's just genuine, then more flows out of them. So I was like, society doing certain things where they try to force women to do things that in their healing process, then they're like, oh, I'm going to show you a villain. You
I'll,
think that I'm bad because I'm not doing this. I'm going to show you bad.
I'll put it this way: when feminism arose, feminism used black men to push it because when you looked at the women's rights movement, they came with the black people, and it was at that time primarily black men that were doing that. So Wade represents is like the black men that they used to move the feminism forward, because without it, it wouldn't went there, because black people were very very much different than they are now, and very family oriented and so forth at that point in time. And after going through slavery, they wanted to obviously be treated like every other man. So going also forward, if you looked at SheGo's brothers, they were very incompetent. And so, and you look at Ron Stoppable, he's a simp.
His
And
last name is even stoppable. It's disrespectful.
yes, it is. It is. So they hide the capable man, which is great, Wade,
Wait,
which they hide him, and they get credit for the work that Wade does. But if Wade actually gets
wasn't there.
she doesn't go. She doesn't go sideways, because he is a capable
Wait,
man.
say that again. You cut out. You cut out. Say it again.
If Wade connects with SheGo, she doesn't go sideways,
Didn't even think about that.
because
I didn't
Wade
think
could
that.
create the circumstances for her success where all the other men can't. This is why she goes sideways, because her brothers are idiots, and she sees a
They are.
bunch of male men around that are idiots. But what do they do with the intelligent men there? They hide them and they steal their work, and stupid people take the credit. And it seems like they bumble their way through, because Kim would have gotten beaten by SheGo 6 ways from Sunday.
She does. Even
Ron
when she gets the
Stoppable is an
great
idiot,
excuse.
but Wade is always coming up with all the stuff that saves their hind parts, but nobody gets really to see him. So in all actuality
All we hear is
is
what's the sitch, Wade?
yes, in all actuality, you're actually watching what Kim Possible and Ron Stoppable are doing, are actually creating the SheGos and destroying the world by extension. And they think they're doing what's right, but they're actually not.
Yes, and what's crazy is that SheGo has more family and conservative mindset values, but she's only turned this direction because she doesn't see any fulfillment and purpose anywhere else, and nothing makes her feel purpose as a woman. This is why I'm saying women need to feel purpose. And she doesn't feel that purpose when she was with her brothers because she's like, you're incompetent, you're causing us problems, and you won't work with me as a team to fix it because you think what you're doing makes the most sense, and it doesn't.
Because if SheGo actually connected with Wade, she'd be 10 times better than Kim Possible.
Well,
She she would
she's
be actually unstoppable.
yes, yes, she would be unstoppable. But what's sad is that Shiko's actually not really a feminist in her
She's not.
mentality.
She's not.
She's not. She hates
She's
him
just
because she's a
broken.
feminist.
She's broken because she can't get a competent male figure in her life that she could actually have to create the circumstances for success, because she can't win by herself. This is why she
Yes,
continually loses.
she realizes that though, and
The only,
she goes to the next competent.
yes,
Only
but the
what?
only reason why Kim Possible and Ron Stoppable win is because of Wade.
Wade. The
because
only even when she got the upgraded suit though, she goes because remember when in the new episodes, the revised or whatever, she got this glowing blue and white suit. Even Kim, even when she got that, SheGo still had a at par level capability. She needed a suit to be. SheGo was just chilling all the time, and she was like barely sweating. Like if she, yeah, you're right. If she, I didn't even consider the fact if she went with Wade, it wasn't even in my mind. It didn't even exist in my mind. And this,
this
you know, funny that you said that because in the stream earlier, I was saying, without men around, when men come around, they say things that don't even exist in possibilities in the mind of women. And you just did
it,
something
it,
like
it,
that.
it it's like that girl that we were looking at the end where she was talking about all the things that she wanted. It's like you need a man. You're asking all of these things and you're trying to do all of this impossibility stuff, and this is what the left is teaching. And that girl, actually, she did some really dirty stuff. I saw that after, but
Ooh,
regardless of
oh,
that girl, she did some really dirty stuff. I didn't realize that was the girl that I saw this clip earlier. I mean, it was months ago, but she did something dirty. Regardless of the situation, you listen to the things that she's saying, and she wants all of these things that men provide. And this is the problem that you see with what the left does, or this Marxist ideology, this feminist ideology. They want to have women do the things that men provide, but it's impossible to. They think
yeah,
that because they can see them and they can talk to it, that you can explain them and do these things. But no, women are wearing themselves out. Like that girl in
yeah,
another, she's like, I'm worn out. I want this, I want that, I want this one. It's like what you're saying is that you need a husband.
yeah,
This is what you're
yeah,
saying.
yeah,
But then
yeah,
you still want to do this, this, and this and be present for your kids. You don't have enough time in the day. You just can't. You might feel like you want it, but you can't. You have to sacrifice one or the other. This whole
yes.
idea of saying that you can do whatever you want and everything, you can fit it all in, just make the time, that is a lie. Everything
Oh
comes at
wow.
a cost.
Someone
Everything
said,
comes
someone
at a
said,
cost.
Sir Gonzo said, Shigo from Kim Possible lore, Wade, LOL. He said, true. They did him so wrong. Wade was the stealth protagonist. Yes, he is the intel, bails him out every time. Yeah, he bails him out every time. He said, Shigo was misled. Kim Possible is the perfect social commentary on Western women. Yeah, unfortunately. And they
Yes.
said, hi, Mr. Richardson. The
Hey,
famous pops, the EOSB, by the way. No, what's crazy though what's crazy though is like women will feel bad because we know that we need like men we know that like so example if you feel like you're feeling bad about something women would rather suffer in the feeling than reach out to a man and be like, oh, I need your help with this, because society has messed women up so bad in thinking that needing a man's help is like weakness or like, you know, you're being a burden, that you literally think that you're gaslighting yourself into believing that you need to do things yourself. But even a lot of things that women, they say they need therapy for, no, you need a father, you need good people around you, you need a husband. There's so many things that you don't need, like that
but
you don't actually need,
what
that men can just fix,
what
like
you're looking at right now, though, honestly, is literally what's playing out with us. People are constantly taking what we're doing, they're suppressing what we're doing, but they don't want anybody to see us, but they want the credit for it. This
oh
is
yeah,
exactly what it is. But the problem is that people want to look at you and they want to act like this came from you all yourself. They don't want to acknowledge where it comes from. Because if men saw what I was doing, then they would start doing it themselves. And women would see, when they see this, they're going to want to demand this from other men
yes.
because they're not doing this, and men need to be able to see what they're supposed to do,
Do you know?
because you need to have smart men that are going to be able to deal with these smart women. Because
That's
when
what
I
I said.
watch these really intelligent women with these average intelligent men, they're going to want to destroy themselves,
Yeah, they want to kill themselves. Yeah, but you know
because
what?
then they become evil because they can't deal with them, and
Yeah,
because you're going to get bent over, because in certain ways because you're not intellectually stimulating a woman. A woman's more mentally engaging, and she's gonna. And if you're even of an average intelligent man, you got to put in a lot of work to do that in order to lead the woman. Because if she's not feeling that she's getting what she needs, she's going to become evil. Women are
she
just that
she
way.
yeah, that's just how exactly. And someone said in the Bible, it says, "He who finds a wife finds a good thing," and finds is a concurring thing. It's not, found. He who finds is someone who has to. He said has to continually find and know his wife all her days, and in the way that you just mentioned, that was very fascinating to me. And what you said, how people want to act like I became this way in and of itself. The show Kim Possible with SheGo acts the entire time as if SheGo is this exceptional, capable villain alone, and she's not. When you finally get the backstory, you see how she learned all of these things, and it was because of her family structure,
I,
even though the men were incompetent in a
I,
large faction.
I listen to, like, for example, Candace Horvax. I think that's her last name. I might have butchered it or whatever. She said something about um, the sometimes it takes men to have daughters for them to understand how to sort of treat a woman, and it's true to a certain degree. A man should be able to see his father treating his mother, even if he has no sisters, to learn how a man should relate to a woman. But the thing is that when man has a daughter, even like 'cause even though I grew up with five women, when I had you as a daughter, I had to pay attention to you uniquely as your child, as my child, to understand who you were and how to parent you and how to get the best out of you, because a man is designed to draw out the best in his wife and in his children. The woman cannot do this. They cannot.
No, they
They
can't. That's what I
will.
was saying earlier. Like when women tell you outcomes, you need to do this, but it's like, okay, how am I supposed to do it? You don't know. I don't know. I need a man to show me. How am I supposed to do that? Where am
The
I going
wo-
to do it?
the woman respecting her husband will draw out the best in him. That's how she's going to draw out the best in him, by respecting him and being loyal to him. That will make a man do anything. Women do those things, a man will do anything for you. He will fall down on 12 swords, get up, and then keep going. That is the key to getting the man to do what is right. And you can tell when the man is stepping out of line and doing something wrong. When you're respectful to that man, when you're saying that, he's going to listen, because a man wants to win and he wants to succeed for his family. If you don't attack him and scold him like a child, but actually talk to him respectfully, he's going to listen. A reasonable man would. Even if he gets a little bit irritated, he'll come back, he'll calm down, and he'll come back and say, you know what, you were right, and let's go and do this. This is the way men operate. But we've been sold a lie and so forth. But the man is the one that creates the circumstances for his family to thrive. He's designed to draw the best out of his wife. This is why when people say providing financial means is the most important part of providing, no, it's not. Finances comes as a part of providing, but it is not the most important, because if it is, then you're replaceable. The thing that a man does is irreplaceable, where he can draw out the best in his wife. He will make her a better woman and a better mother to his child, and he'll make that child a better child to the mother. He'll draw out the best in all of them and create the circumstances for them to thrive. And that is what the man does, and that is irreplaceable. No woman can do that job, just like a man cannot push out a baby and nurture the baby like the woman. It just doesn't work.
That's why I said, like, a lot of people don't need therapy. They need husbands. Like, some people need therapy. I'm not even going to lie. Like, some people need, like, mental help. But most of the things that people are stressed about, and I've heard counselors say this as well, most things people are stressed about, women, are environmental. What does that mean? They actually don't have someone around them that's creating those circumstances for their success. If they had that inserted in their life, most of their problems would go away because now they would have someone to work together with as a team.
a therapist can help you with certain things, but not like your
Not like,
spouse,
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
because
Not like your
a
spouse.
man is going to a man and a wife. A husband's going to know you better, you know his wife better than any therapist. So he's going to be able to do things and see things that the therapist will never be able to understand or fathom. Because if a man is doing his job properly, he is going to understand who his wife is and how to help her and draw out the things that are necessary for her, because that is what we're designed to do. And if she can, if you think, if you're going to a therapy to do what your husband's doing, you need to look at your relationship, because that man should be able
I'm gonna
to
say facts.
understand that woman. Because when
Yeah.
you look at it, a man is going to be able to find all the things that are wrong with you. You can tell when there's something wrong with you, just it's all written all over your face. This is why when a man comes and asks, he's like, "What's wrong?" You're like, "Oh, I'm fine." He's like, he knows you're lying. It's written all over your face, and he's like, "Okay, then when you're ready to tell me, I'll wait, or you're just going to blow up on me one day when I'm just doing something and I won't expect it, but I know something's wrong." So don't lie and say, "Oh, it's fine," when the guy can see it written all over your face.
But a lot of women, exactly, and a lot of women, I. This is why I was explaining like the women being numb because the like it needs to be, things need to be approached a certain way, especially when women are intelligent or capable. A lot of things to them are analytical. They can rationalize. You talk about this before, how they just rationalize doing anything as long as it serves their purpose. Like SheGo, she loved chaos, and if she could rationalize doing something to get what she needed, she just did it. Didn't matter if it was, her financial habits or her, her beauty habits or, her dietary needs or whatever else. If she could justify the ends to the means, then she was like, whatever. Most things for women who are quite capable and intelligent at, acquiring things and doing certain things, most things are just like, whatever, I'll do it because I can and because I will. And
I'll tell you straight up, Kim Possible is low key Jezebel. She is. Because
I was gonna talk about that, but I said let me wait.
no, she straight up is, she is like a Jezebel, because the fact that she is keep getting, making sure that the good men are being kept hidden, and then it's going to create more bad women because there's no more good women. She is causing the destruction, and she's a feminist, and she's got a simp like the prophets of the Grove were unstoppable. He was so weak that Elijah doesn't even mention them. I mean, it is, but she's creating monsters with what she's doing, and she's like stealing
Yeah,
from the men to glorify herself, but wouldn't get anywhere. Like, as if Wade was like, "Peace out," she would get her, she would
you
just
get
mop the
fried.
floor with her,
Yeah,
right?
she'd be fried because
Yes,
even in the new, even in the new updated versions, or when she goes into the future and has those different things, like it's still Wade versus SheGo.
Wade is the brains behind the operation. He
But
straight up is.
if you're looking at capability, if you're really looking at capability, you're right. It is Wade and SheGo matching together. Because if you're looking at good guy versus good guy, then technically, if they're trying to portray that image, then Kim should have been with Wade because that's where the two capabilities come into fruition. But if we're being honest about the actual capability and principle and intention, it should be Wade and Shigo.
Yes, because
And Kim should have like nobody.
she would have worked with the man instead of trying to use the man for what she wanted, which is exactly what Jezebel did.
Yeah.
She used
And
Ahab
yeah.
to do what she wanted, and she did things that no man would do, and it caused more destruction. And they were teaching you the wrong thing, because even though Shigo was a bad guy, she was actually the one that was following the right way, and then they warped it. This is the Gnostic. This is the Gnosticism that they
Yep.
put in a lot of of Hollywood
Shows.
shows, which teaches you resentment
Yes.
towards the biblical model of the way the family structure should be. And
Yeah.
so, and then it teaches you, then it reinforces you that you steal from black people, black men. I'm
I
serious.
never even thought about it like I
The-
never even thought about it like
yes,
that. But
because
okay,
people think that these things aren't, they call it entertainment or for a reason, but it's edgy programming for a reason,
it
because
is,
it's
and it's like it should.
programming you. Because I'll tell you right now, your brain can only process like 8 frames per second. You have something going at 30 frames per second, you're getting 22 of those frames directly into your subconscious, and it is rewiring the way that you think. You think it's not, but you're insane if you think that your brain is any different than any other human beings. Some people are going to be more affected than others, but you should never allow people to have that kind of access to your subconscious. And this is why when you start taking in things, and especially when you're younger, and you can't be like, wait a second, I need to stop this, you're just finished. And when they're watching this from young, and then they go into the schools for the indoctrination, they're primed by the time they go to school, because they've
Yeah,
been putting all this filth in the
that's messed up.
cartoons
Yeah,
to
because
teach them all of these things. And this is why you should never plop your kids in front of the
in a
TV
cartoon.
as a babysitter.
But it's
Not
funny.
today.
It's funny because uh SheGo actually respected just straight raw capability, and she wouldn't fight someone who was beneath her capability. She would just be like, "I'm not wasting my time with that," and she would just straight up leave. Kim Possible, it's funny because she was doing that, and then also her best friend female was a mixed girl or a black girl or whatever, Monique, and then the
Mm-hmm.
girl that she was constantly in competition with the cool kids group was Bonnie Rockefeller, the cheerleader that she was always trying to, and then she joins that cheerleader team and she's trying to be better than Bonnie Rockefeller. So she's trying to do all this as well, also to be better than like the spawn of Satan's daughter. Like, because obviously, why is her last name Rockefeller? You know?
Yes, Rockefeller is like a ranked criminal,
Yes,
right? Like, yes, he was. Yes, he was a thug.
yes, but ultimately, I'm trying to. What I was having a hard time was expressing the solution for how to make sure that the women, because I'm not trying to blame, I'm not trying to say like my actions are the fault of someone else, like it, like I'm not trying to say, oh, if you don't do this then I'm going to do this, like because I'm traumatized. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm saying that women, i'm trying to I'm trying to say like women who are in these positions who are competent and capable, like the she goes per se, who have that good foundation and they're exceptional. How, like what's the solution to making sure they don't get jaded and go sideways? Because a lot of people are like, there's villains, like they are creating villains, and I said I would be one, and I would be a very exceptional one if I didn't have a father that I listened to, like just to be honest, like
Well, and that's the thing. It comes down to it. Either you're going to have a Rahab or you're going to have a Jezebel,
yeah,
right? They're both engaging in the same thing. Because Rahab was a prostitute. Jezebel was like the max prostitute because she was raised to be a prostitute. That's what those high
high
priestesses were. They were
priestess.
they were temple prostitutes, right? Like, and her father should have been shot because he was giving up his daughter to be raped from a
That's
young age.
disgusting.
Yes. But then that made her evil. So what did she come out and do? And she decided to do that. But Rahab, when she had her opportunity, she was like, not today, Satan. I'm out. I'm going to go with these guys because they serve God, and I'm not having none of that. So I'm going to save me and my whole family. And so she did. So then what did she do? She ended up getting married. She had a man. And this is, again, what is needed for that situation, because it's almost impossible for a woman to get out. And if she does get out, it was because she had some assistance from a man somewhere, whether she saw it or not.
That was my
Because
point.
men can make or break you without you ever seeing their face or knowing that they were there. That
That's what I
is
was saying.
the way that men are designed. And you go, you pick up the book Propaganda by Edward Bernays, and he'll tell you straight out that your tastes are being shaped by men you never know.
That's what I said. The
And that
people at
is
the top. I said that's also why I don't want to be a villain, because I know that the people at the top are betting on the tendencies of the people at the bottom, who are going to piss me off when I do something that they don't like that I'm doing, because they refuse to see the bigger picture of all the work that I'm doing. So they use those people to attack me to get what they want at the top, which is me becoming a villain. Which is why I'm like, no, there's no way I will do that, because it's screw you on the bigger picture, not screw you on the smaller picture, because then that screws me. So it's like, but most people don't understand that.
this is why they hate people that use the Bible as their guide.
Yes.
Because no matter how much manipulation they try to put on you and to try to subvert your ability to do things by going after your subconscious, when you're consciously going in and reading the Bible and comparing yourself and your choices to the Bible and those types of things, you're going to be like, they'll have some nonsense and you're like, no, I have to reject that because that goes against the Bible.
Yeah.
Too bad, right?
That's right.
Because because if you only go internally, if you reset the internal clock by going ahead and using subliminal messaging and all these other kinds of things, and people are like, oh, my mind's too strong for that. I'm like, no, you've got
No, you're
biology
not.
and that's just the way it works.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Like, and if you
Exactly.
think that way, you're gonna drink the Kool-Aid. And you don't have to go super far, just far enough off the mark. That's all you need to do.
And the subliminal messaging is not like you're gonna, like, especially with music, you're not gonna hear it. It's ingrained into the video that you're seeing. So you're not gonna catch it. It's every 13 frames, because your mind can only take it, I think, 7 frames per second, and they put 13 or plus more or whatever. And there'll be frames that you won't see, but your subconscious will get it. Sir Gonzo said in the chat, he said two things. He said it's actually illegal to advertise a message without the disclaimer being openly displayed. They had to pass a ban on subliminal messages some years ago in the US for this reason. Understandable that a gifted person like that would find chaos to be intoxicating. It was an outlet for her high intellect / competency. Thanks for the book recommendation. We'll have to read it after Lions Do Not Bow. Prayer hands. I don't know what that book is. And someone else actually had a question here earlier. They said, it was Cunnel Angus. My first marriage didn't work out because my wife was still very attached to her father. Her father did the worst thing a person can do, but she had a Stockholm syndrome type thing for him still. I thought maybe you would. I answered it, but now that you're here, perhaps you can probably answer it.
I don't know, man, but you need to go back and figure out what was going on, because if a father did that and wanted to, she kept coming back to the father during the marriage, there's something wrong with them, right? That's not the way a father does. Father doesn't want to have his kids around his feet. My daughter has a husband and tries to come. I'd be like, you better go and sort that out. Unless he beats you, I don't need to hear about it. Not my problem, right? That's between you and your husband. Like, seriously, not my business. Like, if you go out and find that situation, then you go. The Bible says that a man shall leave father and mother and cleave to his wife. That's their business, not mine. Right? I'm just making sure that somebody don't beat the hell out of her and all that kind of stuff, so that when she does go, she don't have to come back and she have her family and her kids, and I'll get to see the grandkids and bounce them on my knee, and that's it. Right?
Yeah, that's what I said. Like, if I would call you in previous situations, you'd be like, no, you need to go handle your business. And, like, you were wrong for doing this or wrong for doing that. Like, you wouldn't mince words with me. So it's like, yeah, that type of thing. That's what he's describing is very actually messed up and very sick.
Yes, he is. He's twisted. That guy's twisted. If he's got some issue, then you need to go and get yourself fixed out, because you choosing the wrong kinds of women.
Honestly.
Because if I had a woman that was doing that and you had been able to catch that from the jump, you just leave.
Yeah.
Because you can't tell me that you wouldn't be able to realize that before you got married to that woman. That's a you issue, man. Like,
Yeah.
running to the
Because
father all the time, you should know that there's something wrong there.
Yeah, that's why I said when you get married, it's God, your husband, and then family, whatever the family. Your father does not come above your husband. That's like sick and twisted and like against the Bible. You can't do that. You, you just, it doesn't even make sense. It's not a thing. Like no one in their right mind does that. And I mentioned even the only work that we do now is because of all the persecution we receive. But in other case, most people, it's like you live your life, you talk to your parents and holidays or whatever else once a week. I don't know.
I put it this way: I have to make sure that my daughter comes to the right person, and not to have a bunch of people going on, because she should have a husband at the end of the day. The only thing is, I don't want him to be a criminal to go out and do what kind of nonsense, because a lot of those men that were coming around, what were they doing? They were trafficking her, they were trying to drug her and do all manner of evil to them. I can't allow that to happen. I'm a father. I can't let that happen. I want her to have a husband,
Yeah.
but one that loves Jesus. And when that happens, I'll be a happy man.
Yeah, exactly. And me too. Like it's the same thing for me. Like if someone loves Jesus, then I'm fine. Literally the only requirement. Like you don't need to be having like all these other things. And actually Kim Possible also does the hypergamy that everyone complains about. Sir Gonzo said, sorry, actually, Lions Do Not Bow. Yes, it's the book Arthur Pulowski. My bad.
Yes,
That's the name
yes, yes,
Pastor. Yeah, I was like, it sounded familiar. Um,
yes.
it came in Amazon recently. Tell me how you like it when you read it, man. Better to walk away sometimes. Yes, you're right. Got to keep up with social economies. Make sure family is in the black. I'm not sure what it means.
You see, yeah, that it's not, you're not running into debt. Um, you see what ends up happening when you have women taking the lead. If you go back and you look at what in the situation where women took the lead in the Bible, Jezebel, and when God mentions Jezebel in Revelation, He said, "I will kill your children with the death." It was so strong because of what happened when Jezebel took over. Jezebel did things that nobody else did. Like what it said, that Ahab, he went ahead, he provoked God more than any king before him until Manasseh.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Until Manasseh.
But this was a high bar, right? Because Jezebel did wickedness, like insane wickedness. The prophets of the grove, they were male prostitutes and they were homosexual and whatever else like that, right? When you think about the Bohemian Grove and that kind of nonsense, that's exactly what the type
That's
of
what I was
things that
thinking
they
of
are.
just now when you said that.
Yes, these guys are doing the filthiest, nastiest things. They were effeminate men, and they weren't manly.
So like
Isaiah,
Ron. Well,
yes, and they're like the alphabet mafia that we're seeing right now, that are just completely unhinged. That's what these guys were like. Like I said, nothing new under the sun. And so then you then had the prophets of Baal that were doing filth and chopping up babies. And what did Jezebel do? She ended up making all of the men like God's men. They had to hide. She was hunting them down and killing them. But she was using Ahab to do it, usurping his
yeah.
authority to do this and destroying them. And what had ended up happening? You're seeing what we're seeing today was happening in Israel then. And God said, not today. And he wiped them down. And Jezebel came to a miserable end. And eventually they got completely destroyed because they would never recover. Never recover. They just kept going back into it worse and worse and worse. And God said, that's enough.
And you know what? They're actually making, like how you said Kim Possible is actually the Jezebel. They're actually making women, the intelligent women, appeal. SheGo is more appealing to intelligent and capable women, and the women who are like the feminist Jezebels, Kim Possible is more appealing to them, and they make this like sick kind of, you know what I'm saying?
Yes,
Like
they take the right role model and they warp it and make it bad. And then they take the wrong role model, and they make it seem good. But when you really examine it, they're doing filth.
Well, they're grooming the intelligent and capable people to actually just choose evil from the jump and be like, it doesn't make sense to be a good person. There's no incentive to be a good person
Well,
because
they
it's
say that
stupidity,
yes,
it's
and they think
weakness,
that when then the people that are doing things for right motives, they think that they're crazy or
crazy,
something
yeah,
wrong with them
something, yeah, like they're
because
stupid or mentally ill, yeah,
people don't understand when you're watching this nonsense that they're feeding you lies and twisting your mind, you're going to learn to love lies because this is a distorted version of reality that doesn't exist. It's a lie. It's a
yeah,
complete lie. It turns everything up on its head, and you're going to look for that, and then it creates that desire for chaos because you've been made comfortable and got used to this chaotic lifestyle. And this is where you have to really guard what you put in front of your child because you're allowing them. 70% of our learning comes from what we see. So it doesn't even have to be subliminal. You put that in front of a kid's head and they can't tell the difference between fantasy and reality. And they're going to start acting out what they see these people do. And they're going to pattern themselves after them. And they want to have all these things because they want, and they'll play out what they see. Kids play to learn. If you watch a child, they'll pick up the things that you use because they want to learn how to be an adult. You put them in front of this and you're teaching them this is how adults are. This is what you're doing.
yeah.
People need to start sitting down and say, "Oh, it's harmless." Really? Really? Are you sure about that? Right? But just because everybody else around you is doing it doesn't mean you should look at whatever people are doing because remember what happened in Greece. They were sleeping with little boys. Everybody was doing it. Did it make it right? Or they were throwing people into the Colosseum to fight to the death or be ripped apart by lions. Was that okay? No. Right? Slavery was legal. A lot of people did it. Did it make it right? No. This is why you can't sit down and say other people are doing it. You can't just say it's harmless. You need to know what you're doing. Right?
But
There's
it's
people.
all, oh,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, it's fine.
No, it's also the women who are, the men at the top are creating this environment for a bunch of the Jezebels and Rahabs to be running around, and the women are pushing, the Jezebel women are pushing more, like the Kim Possibles are creating more SheGos. Like they're going around trying to push them to do outcomes that they think
Yes.
the outcome needs to be, but because they actually don't know how to create the environment, they're just creating, they're just pushing.
They're using men to destroy their enemies and then they want these things for themselves. Women don't they when you watch a man and a woman doing something in for example, women are not the ones that are designed to go to war. They're
No,
not. They're not.
they can't handle
Not
it. There's
not
a point where you just get to a breaking point, you can't handle it anymore, you crash out.
you,
And they
you
have the moments of crash out and everyone's like, oh, what are they doing? They're so stupid. And then it's like you don't see the whole picture. You don't see how all of this it got to this point. Like you just see the one point.
you have some good women that are very good at what they do and they're better than most women, but those women do not hold a candle to the best men at what
No,
they do. It's not even a contest.
no,
You take men and women at equal um equal levels within their own sexes and put them up against each other, there's not ever going to be a contest when it comes to the physical stuff and the acting under duress and so forth. Right? You might have the best woman best some of the weakest men, but that doesn't say very much.
no,
Because when you start getting to the average men, they're never going to win. They're
no.
not. And
And what?
no, look at the elite athletes that they put against the high school boys, and they get destroyed.
Embarrassing. Grade 6. I'm sure grade 6 level boys.
They have like 13, 14, 15 year
13,
old
14 year
boys
olds
that are just destroying like the Olympic teams and like the professional like
who
female
trained their
players.
entire life for this, by the way. Their entire life. And these boys have only been alive for 12 and 13 years. They haven't even, their voice has not even dropped. They don't even have chin
So
hair. Like, Someone said, I appreciate this unparalleled stream. You're definitely a light developing through darkness. You are to be protected and cherished as the woman that man is fortunate to encounter. I'd love to be graced. That's by the grace of God, my father. Thank you, sir. It's a game theory, says Sir Gonzo. Chess is the best game to introduce to a kid. Agrees. In boxing, we have this problem too with the trans athletes.
Yes, and these things happen because all of the men that are standing up, they're getting destroyed. They're getting destroyed by weak men, and then the Jezebels are working with the weak men because they want to be doing the work of men, but they can't because they've been lied to. Like, oh, you can do anything a man can do. No, you can't. If a woman can do anything a man can do, then a man can give birth to babies and
Yeah.
breastfeed and all those other things.
Well, I was saying that if a woman can do all that a man can do, I was like, God, how women are like, oh, if I pray, God will show me how to do the things that men do when men are not around, so I can replace the man by just praying to God. I'm like, no, that's delusional, because God does not make you transgender when you pray to solve a problem.
It,
He doesn't give you the mind of a man, the perception or the solutions or the capabilities of a man, so you can fix your problem as a woman. He doesn't make you
they
transgender to
they
solve your
said that
problems.
Deborah was a judge in the Bible. Yes, she was, but she didn't sit in the gate. She sat under a tree. No, seriously, the gate was known as the court. The every
That's hilarious.
everything that life and death
That's
matters were
hilarious.
handled in the gate because if something went sideways, they take that person out and they stone them. Deborah
Yeah,
did
for
not
life or
sit
death.
in. She did not sit in the gate. She sat under a tree. The
Yeah,
reason why, because the gate was for the men. The women are not there to deal with the life and death issues. Were
yeah,
not, right? They
yeah.
just, no. God
And
never did that. And people
no,
don't understand why, like, they sat down and said that the elder has to be the husband of one wife. Well, look at what happened to almost all of the apostles. They died gruesome deaths.
yes,
They were putting their lives at risk on a daily basis. Why would you do that to the women who are tending the children? Are you
yeah,
mad? Right? So do you want your wife to go out and to put themselves to get stoned? Like Paul was getting stoned more than once. He like, I mean, he was getting all kinds of stuff. Look at the disciples, they get thrown in jail, they got beaten, they got, like, they had cruel deaths. That is why they have them for the men.
yep,
And any man that says I want my woman to go up in there, you're not a man.
no. Someone said Trump upend all of this. He just did an executive order. I guess for the trans athletes to make sure they're out of sports. Well, yeah, I think so as well, which is good because they should not be in there. It should be like literally a crime. Um, so then, what is the Yeah, I also say honestly, I'm really tired of people constantly saying, "Well, we don't need men." Or acting like women can do everything by themselves, or that women can be strong. And like it was Women's Day, International Women's Day or something yesterday on March 2nd, or it was something. And I got so annoyed because it's like we are talking about women as if they are men, that they're doing all these things that men are doing, or that we're strong and like capable, independent. I'm tired of that. Where are the women to say, "Oh, I'm soft, I'm a delicate flower, I'm a rose or a daisy, and I am soft spoken and feminine and peaceful, and I like to be quiet and I like to do my own things." Not that women
You,
can't talk, but it's like I like to be in peace, not because I don't like to talk. I just like to have peace.
you know what though? You know what the whole problem is when women say, "Well, men aren't doing the work, so we're going to do it." That's why men don't do the work. If you with a man, if you do his work for you, he'll just sit there and he'll take it. But when you leave the man to do his work and you refuse to do the man's work, he's going to have to do it because he knows if that ship is going down and he's standing on it too, he's going to get up and you have to just let nature take its course. Women need to stop doing the work of men or trying to justify it, because that's the nature of a woman. When they're teaching the child and they can't get it, they'll do it for them. The man will sit
Yeah.
there and say, "No, you're going to do it till you get it." That's the way men are, and men are that way with each other. And if you do that for a man, when women try to do the work of men, they destroy it. They destroy men. They destroy men because you can't do the work for them. You need to just let the man do his work, or you go off somewhere else. If that man ain't doing his work, you ain't going to make him do it. You're never going to do it. Telling him is not going to do it. And then women want me to explain how to motivate men. I'm like, I can't.
You
You have to be a
can't.
man to do it. Because I can't explain to you how to create the circumstances. I can't explain to you the way that God made me any more than you can explain to me how to be a woman.
Yeah, this guy said that his son, the son actually, he was saying that one day his dad punched him in the face once, and he said he called his mom a B word, and he said that his dad, the mom told the dad, and he called him downstairs. He said, "Come on, we're gonna go for a beer." He said, "What?" He said, "You're a big man now. We're gonna go for a beer, and we're gonna go down to the pub there, and you're gonna drink. What do you want? To smoke or something else too, or something like that?" And he was like, "What? No, I'm only 16. I can't." He's like, "Well, you can call your mom a B word, but you can't take a drink like a man." And then he was like, "What?" He said he was confused. And he said he didn't know what was going on. All of a sudden, bam, his dad punched him in the face. He said, "Don't you ever talk to your mom like that again, or call her this name or whatever." And he said, "Because every time you do it, I'm going to have to hit you in your face." He said, "I love you, but I had to do that. And don't make me do it again, because I will do it." And then he said after that, he never did it again. I don't understand why he did it that way. It didn't make sense to me what he was saying and how he
Because
did
men
that.
need to have circumstances,
Yeah, but the
and he
drink,
needs,
come to the pub with me to get a drink. And
because you're acting like you're a big man and that you can run this place, and that you're going to go on and treat your mother this way. So then, come on, be a big man. And he's like, "No, you're gonna learn."
but the difference between that man doing that to his son in that moment, the circumstances he was creating in the conversation, even to
Yes,
get to the point before punching him. If a woman comes and punches you for hitting in the face, the kid is not going to register. The son is not going to register it the same way as when the father does it.
father laid out the circumstances. Is like, now you're gonna get it, and this is gonna
Now you're
make
going to
you
get it.
remember.
Circumstance, consequence, action, consequence. And with moms, and this is why when you tell a mother, okay, well, you have to do this, if the man, like if there's no man around, the kid is not going to get the lesson the same way, so it's not even the same. It's not going to have the same effect.
And it's like, if it's a woman's raising a son and he turns out all right, it's not because of what she did.
No.
She'll
Sorry.
he'll take things that she's done, but then he'll then construct it in his mind in the way that it needs to be for a man.
Yeah,
And
which,
it's
yeah.
you're like, yeah, they'll figure it out. I'm like, no, they're not supposed to. They're kids. But it's by the grace of God that they did. You say that to a woman, she's going to get hurt. She doesn't like to hear that. They're like, well, my kids turned out all right. Well, yeah, it's not because of you. It's because your kid learned it to do it on his own. You're rolling the dice, and like it doesn't favor kids, boys, to be fatherless. Not at
Mm.
all. So it's like, men understand in a better way that they're just not women, and they'll create the circumstances for the girls to be in a situation where they can learn from other women. This is usually what men do.
Someone said you should check out a book called America by John Ogilvy. It's a great sightseer. Also, this live was different, fortunately. I look forward to seeing more genuine connections like this in the future. You said that's brilliant, Sir Gonzo. Okay, thank you. Now, I guess I could say then, in unless you have something else to say, moral of the story then for all of this. And also, fathers, even if the father is around, though, just before that, the father doesn't need to, because men create circumstances when you're not even you don't even see them, you don't even know them. Father doesn't need to be actually present physically there to be creating a circumstance for their kid's success, in if they're a good father that is obviously connected with their kid. But moral of the story here, in regards to what we're talking about, the impossible possibility of SheGo and how that relates to competent women in comparison to the incompetent men, the consequences of the villainy and everything else. What would you say the moral of the story is? Because clearly I've been missing some
I'll tell you
threads
right
haven't
now,
rounded up together.
because Jezebel and the prophets of the grove are actually keeping Shigo and Wade from each other, because Wade would be 3 times at least better than he was, and Shigo would be elevated to another level. And they would have helped create the circumstances for a much better society where there would be much better people, but the weak ones are banding together to destroy the strong ones and separate them. And they're by far obscuring the men that are the strong ones. And then they're letting the intelligent women run free to become demons.
Yes, yes, and that's why I said they're trying to make me a villain. They want me to become a demon. But and then Wade and Shigo would actually have elite children because the capabilities and the genetics between the two of them, if you really want to go there, um, like you said, them meeting, working together. If we're really going to talk about capability, instead of Ron and him getting, if they want to do their stupidity, whatever. But if we're talking about actual value of capability being equally yoked, that yeah, you're right.
Because in a situation with yourself and me, it's like I have to play the person of Wade until you could go and get your own person. Because what a father is supposed to do is to guard his daughter until he. Oh, oh. Well, I guess her camera went out. And and what? I
Saying
can't hear.
cut out because it was a Matrix attack.
Yeah, I said a father is supposed to guard his daughter until he hands his daughter over to the man that she's going to marry, and then the father can be satisfied and say, "Okay, he's got obviously they're not perfect, but he's got enough skills that I can sit down and say that they're going to grow together and they'll be good." And that's really it, because if the father just punts his daughter out to the wolves, what is he going to do? Look at what happens when men send their daughters to college. They become prostitutes.
Literally, college is
Right?
a cesspool for hell and demonic everything.
Yes,
There's
because they're
nothing
like
good about it.
vipers, right? Like when I remember rolling into your school there when you're at university, and this is a Christian school, and I could look at these guys. I'm like, these guys are punks. I'm like, and they were all terrified of me. And when my daughter would tell me that, I'm like, yeah, because they're criminals. Those guys, I would wring their necks when I was a kid, right? Like I would have just straight up punched you in your face for what you did. With my sisters, guys come roll up my sister. I just like walk up a group of men. I said, I'll beat all of you guys. I don't care. I said, you better not even look at my sister, right? I I know I could play around like that. Like now I'm older. I'm still like as my grandma said, there's more than one way to skin a cat, and you guys will feel the consequences
Yeah.
regardless, right? I don't have to put my hands on you. That's the best way, because then you're going to feel it and you're going to learn. But this is
Yeah.
the whole point. We have to have the men that are going to lead the men in the right way so that they can have less demonic women. Because when I look at all those women going into like OnlyFans and porn and things like this, these women are extremely intelligent.
Yeah, I said Nala, someone like Nala, if she didn't find her husband, Jesus have mercy, she would have become an exceptional villain. Like her level of capability, like you don't
But
see that often.
when you shame these women, you make them worse.
Yeah.
Attacking them, like I look, like it's not going to do what you think it is. You see
Yeah,
that women
they
like to
feed on it.
shame other women because it makes them feel good.
Yes.
Men don't need to do that. First of all, I grew up in a household with 5 women. Right, my father died on his way to go to work. He got into a car accident and he died. So I had to learn and navigate with 5 women. I couldn't out talk 5 women. That's nuts. Be, I would have went crazy. You know how I had to deal with it? I had to use my actions. When I would change my actions, then they would change their behavior. Because men speak by their actions, and women will respond to men that speak by their actions. And you don't have to go ahead and make a woman feel good all the time. Yes, you do make her feel good, but sometimes you have to tell her the truth because it's necessary. Because we live in a society that sit down and say that you got to make a woman feel good all the time. That's a lie.
Yeah.
Because men have to set the boundaries, right? Because women will do things that make them feel good, but that will kill other men and
Yes.
it will destroy men. We're
Yes.
very different, so we have to sit down and say, no, you can't do that because that's consequences, and that's going to harm me and other men. Don't do it, please, because you're going
Yep.
to make society worse. Even though it's not a thing to you, but it definitely will affect the men the other way. And this is where men also have to pay attention to the women and their needs as well. But
Yes.
yeah,
Someone said, Sir Gonzo said, "That's brilliant. We need the spin-off of Wade and SheGo coming together." And then they said the level of productivity and efficiency would be off the chain. No way. And he said he did the same thing when he was moving his sister into her dorm with the men. 1,000%. Every action has a positive or negative reaction. Felt boundaries are important. Yes.
yes, because straight up, like I tell you, all I need is an intelligent woman who loves Jesus, and a lot of devil worshippers will be screaming.
Oh yeah. Like this is what I said. Like I cannot wait to be married and have a family because the level of work and capability that I will have and that I will do with a spouse is going to be like it's going to be mad. Like you cannot do that. And I was like you can't produce those results with a parent because the relationship with you have it with a parent is completely different than a spouse. And a spouse is going to motivate you to do things that a parent literally cannot motivate you to do. Like I said, a lot of the reasons why you don't get frustrated with me when I do a lot of things is because like like when I'm emotional or whatever. Because there are like when I'm to be fair, a lot of times I was numb, but you can't do anything about that as my dad. You're my dad. You love me as my dad, but there's a completely different thing when you meet somebody that loves you interpersonally, like
Yes,
in an
it's
intimate way
very
as a
different.
spouse. It's very different. So then that's a different level of connection, and that's literally the only way that a lot of these women get out of these situations that we talk about all the time
What
with our
people have to
girls.
understand, what my daughter would do for me as her father, she would go like 50 times higher than this for a man, a man, because people that haven't seen this in this kind of way, but any man with sense will understand because they understand that your parents are only a certain thing. Because a man would be like, okay, I would do things for my mother, but my wife, I would do way more because
Exactly.
the nature of the relationship's different. Yes, you love your parents, but when you have a spouse, it's a very very different type of relationship that you have that tie to that you cannot have with your parents. You just can't. So
Exactly.
so when you look at that, then you're going to understand that doing this with your parent and child, if you did this with a spouse, if she did this with her husband, it would be for the work that she would do would exceed what you're seeing now.
Yeah.
If I was doing something for a woman that I would be with, it would far exceed that because the nature of how I would understand my wife is very different than how I would understand my daughter. I understand my daughter from raising her and seeing
Yeah,
her
literally.
grow, but with a wife, you would have that connection. Is like the Bible says, you become one flesh. That's
Oh, I
next
see.
level difference.
I see what you're saying. You said people, it's hard for people to understand because they actually haven't seen the level of capability to begin with. So because it's a higher level of capability as a norm, it's hard for them to
Uh,
even imagine that it would go to a different level with a
a lot
spouse or
of a
something.
lot of people have their spouses and they can't even do this
Yeah,
because it's like they've been taught wrong, and so
wrong.
when you're
Yeah,
taught wrong, you can't do this, but they need to start getting back to going to what works. And men have to start. This is why marriages are failing, because men are trying to approach things like women and talk to them. Well, I'm not saying don't talk, but you have to use a lot of your actions to deal with things.
Yep.
And there's not enough men that are getting the platform to do this. You see a lot of guys yap 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 yap, and they're not do,
Yep.
right? And so you have to sit down and be able to understand that sometimes a woman's going to get angry with you. And like I tell my daughter, I'd rather have you angry and alive than feel good and die. And when it comes down to certain things, you have to tell a woman the truth, regardless of whether it's going to hurt her or not. Because lying is not going to create the circumstances for the success of your family. Now, you don't have to be rude about it, but you need to be honest with her and tell her why things are going to be the way they are. Because with my daughter, I would tell her, even with some of my ex-wife or my daughter's mother, I would go and tell her, I said, if you go and do this is going to happen. Then she'd go and do it and blow up in her face, and she'd be like, oh, what? You were right. Well, of course, because I know what men are like, and I know what they're going to do and how these things are going to happen. Right? So then they realize that you weren't lying.
Yep.
Right? Because even if she doesn't listen, she's going to go and do it, and it's going to just blow up in her face, and she'd be like, oh, he was right. He was looking out for me. And then eventually she keeps seeing that, and she's like, I'm being stupid.
Yeah. Exactly. Moral of the story, well, you got it just now. So, you know what? That's been the impossible possibility of SheGo. A lot of us SheGos are running around, and we need to get in touch with Wade. We need to find Wade. And when we find Wade, we will be exceptional. Because I say all the time, oh, by the grace of God and my Father, because of my exceptionality. But when I get married, that will be the grace of God, my Father, and, well, a future husband. You know, he will be added to that list of my greatness, because he will be creating the circumstances for me to excel my greatness and bring out the best in me. I need a Wade. But, you know, every Wade needs a SheGo. And this is where women also need to be more realistic about things, because you can't, like, this has nothing to do with a guy who's 6 foot, 6-pack, and 6 figures, because Wade was not 6 foot. He did not have 6-pack, and he was not 6. You know what? Maybe he ended up getting 6 figures because he was very smart. Who knows? I don't know. He's very smart, but his capability matched the level of capability of SheGo, and ultimately, you need to be equally yoked, because when you're not equally yoked, especially when you have a high level of capability, you're going to go astray. You're going to become evil. You're going to become a villain, or someone is going to exploit the fact that you're not being fulfilled in your...
It didn't matter what Wade was making, because if she
That's what I'm
and Wade
saying.
hooked up, they would have dominated the world.
Exactly. Like, it doesn't matter, because... But I'm just saying, potentially, like, regardless of them dominating later, I'm just saying, because of his high level of intellect, he probably was just, you know, someone somewhere with, because all the technology he had. But I don't know, maybe he made it himself because he was very smart. But you're right. They could have had nothing. They would have linked up, dominated everything, because they had all of the pieces that each other didn't have, because he needed the body motion of Kim Possible. And that's why it, like, worked well, because he could get her to do the motion. If he had SheGo doing that, well, it would have been finished. She wouldn't need Dr. Draken, because she would have had Wade. So get all you SheGos out there, get you a Wade. All you Kim Possibles who are going around with Rons and creating more, like, SheGos and awful people. Like,
Stop hiding and destroying the Wades.
Yeah, stop hiding the capable men and destroying the good women from getting in contact with those capable men that dominate the world and do great things in a positive way, if that even makes sense. Like, to help people in a good way. That's a You killed it with that.
Y-
It's a thing I didn't consider.
yes, because the only reason why you get, like, you, for example, the accounts that we have on social media are very small.
Yeah,
The amount of attacks and attention that we get from a lot of people
is insane.
is absurd, and
Yeah,
it's because they fear our capability.
yes,
That is why.
and the potential.
Yes.
And you know what? I was just reading in the Great Controversy. She said even then, back then, the books, because they had no printing press, they didn't have the same preservation capabilities. And the Germans and the Brits and the Romanists were burning the books that had the proper, information. And not only that, they were censoring the good books. So it's like even back then they had the censorship, and the way that they have it now, they just have more accelerated capabilities. Well, they had better tactics back then before the printing press. Now it became a little bit more
And
difficult.
and the more that you submit to God, the more your capabilities level up.
Exactly.
So if you're serving God, the people who serve the devil will not, you will always be ahead of them because it's God.
So then, in that, yes, God for the motivator and the purpose, because that's what I mentioned earlier. The reason, hey, the only reason that I'm not evil is because of God. For one, because it's the only reason not to be evil, and two, because I understand on a personal level what happened, and I hate injustice, but I always have. But three, that would mean that the reason why a lot of women are going around the world numb, she goes, because SheGo in large part is very nonchalant, very off the shoulder, cold, numb, is because she's missing Wade. And if she had come in contact with Wade, she wouldn't be numb anymore. She would not have, like, she would actually find the purpose would ignite the fire in her, and she would actually be a completely different person. That is insane. There is nothing to feel, or like it almost seems like there's nothing to live for in a lot of ways when you have that level of capability and you're missing your puzzle piece.
If she goes and Wade's hooked up, the world would be much a very different place.
Yes, they would. Wow, yes, they would. Life is hearts and roses when you come in contact with a Wade, guys. Hearts and roses. Whereas it was dull and gray and decrepit and filled with void and clouds. It becomes hearts and roses and filled with color, if you will, or vigor, you know. So let's all, I guess, work on that. I guess. Why don't you pray to, or you want to say something first?
Yeah, just one other thing. You have to remember that Kim Possible was relentlessly hunting down SheGo.
Yes. And you know what? SheGo was all, and that's what I said. I said earlier. I said SheGo actually doesn't care about Kim in and of herself. SheGo was always pissed off because while she was relaxing and minding her own business, trying to get a facial or spa, and at the poolside, in between the mischievous, diabolical plans of Draken, Dr. Draken, Kim Possible would pop up out of nowhere and ruin her spa or her me time, and she'd be pissed off, and she's like, now I have to do something about it. You're pissing in my cornflakes.
She would have never interfered with Kim Possible because Kim Possible doesn't have anywhere near the capability. She doesn't
Yeah,
look at it as a challenge. She's like, I wouldn't have touched you,
yeah.
but that she hunted her down.
And then she got a man that she thought she could control to help her hunt her down.
Yeah, she got her Ahab.
And in reality, Wade is doing this work while she's doing something else, while Kim is doing something else. And if Wade were actually to come in direct contact with SheGo, it would be an entirely different story. So it's like the people who are actually going to do positive work, who actually have
They stand in
capability,
between them and they
they,
isolate them because if actually
and then
Wade
try to
and
kill them.
Chigo had a conversation, they'd be like, we need to hook up and we need to do what's right. Because she'd be like, this guy, he might be bad, and but he's incompetent. You're smart. Let's go.
Yeah, that's what Shigo's main objective was. Who was the most competent person to help me complete the task oriented or results oriented? And she didn't care. She didn't even look in the direction of Kim, like you
And
said, because she only managed to fight people. She would not fight someone if she felt like it was outside of her capability. And
we're not going to sit down and say that you need to have an ugly man. Nobody's telling anyone
oh,
to
no,
do
no, no,
that.
no, that's
But you have to also remember, you cannot just judge the book by its cover, because remember, the fruit looked pleasing to the eyes, and ate it. Just keep that in mind.
yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yes,
And
what
that's
she
what
saw.
Yes, and that's the hypergamy that they always talk about as well, low key, because you know what, Kim Possible also went with all the men who looked better and all this other stuff, who had, maybe a higher social class or whatever, and those men tried to honeypot her. They were honeypot, some of them,
Appearances.
appearances, and then later she found that the one that was stuck beside her, who was the loyal, who was ended up the good guy, was the one that she was clowning. She didn't care the whole time, was Ron, who was the only one who treated her well, even though he was an
Yes,
idiot.
but if he had any spine, he would have just said, "Sorry, Kim, too bad."
Yeah, exactly. He would have been, no, I'm not going to be your last option
But
because there's
they
nothing left.
teach you that you can trample that guy and do all
And
the
he'll
things
be
that you
there
want, and
still.
then he'll be there for you. That's not
Yeah,
the way
no.
men do. And if a man is that, he's going to be abusive. You're gonna hate your life,
Yeah.
right?
But they
And
make you think that that guy is the good guy. It's like,
yes, and then they make it seem like, well, you know what? I'll get the girl eventually. I'll just be nice, and just like Ron Stoppable, I'll get her in the end.
no, the nice guy, yeah, no. This is why nice guys are not good. But the kind men, the kind and the intelligent and the capable men, and this is where you have to look at the value of being equally yoked and the capability and match that to yourself, or else you're gonna screw yourself. You're gonna want to unalive, honestly, because I would rather be with someone who's capable and I can do good work with them because my mind will be captivated. I still have to be attracted to them for sure, but I'm not looking at what these people, 6 foot, six figures, six pack, like who cares? If you have those things, cool, but if not, who cares? It's not my priority.
Yeah, when you sit down and look at it, people have ambushed other people
Yes,
like that because they find that they're threats and they're afraid of them. And that's
yes.
when, with a woman, when
Wait,
if you're
people
looking,
like who? Wade? They ambush people like who?
no, I'm saying, like, when you're watching people getting like, for example, us, they're getting ambushed because of capability, and other people are
Yeah.
getting ambushed in that same manner. And if people are doing that because they're afraid, that's because the people they're ambushing are strong. And
Yes.
especially if they're serving God, it's you're not just playing against human beings, you're playing against God. And I'm like, I'll take my chances. I don't care how many of you are there. I'm serving God because God sent one angel. What did you do to what's his name, Sennacherib? Just wiped out 185,000 people, right? Like, I mean, go ahead. You think you can beat God? Go ahead,
Exactly.
by all means.
And and that's really it, because the people who, when you're being ambushed, like Shigo, she does not interfere with people who's not at her level of capability. It doesn't disturb her peace. She doesn't even change her mood. She could be fighting someone and she's just like, I have to do this because you've pissed me off. But the people, it's in the same in real life. When you're truly capable, you're not disturbed by people who are not on your level, because you're like, I'm not, and why am I gonna disturb you for? Like, it just won't, there's no benefit, there's no ROI in that. So these people who hunt you down vehemently and viciously in packs is because they think that their strength against you one on one is of no value, and they have to come against you in packs, which is even more embarrassing for them because it shows how weak they actually are. Because someone who's actually strong and believes in themselves with confidence will come to you face to face and they'll challenge you face to face. And these people will never do that because they're weak.
Yes,
And that's just embarrassing. Because then
yes,
it's
it
like you
is.
win against them every time and you have nothing. And it's just
Yes,
like, it's like, even if this was the scenario where all bad guys, it's like you still suck. because
If
that
you
means
can't
we
get
have
rid of
final
somebody
boss.
with all of the people that you're putting at this point, you failed.
Yeah, it's like we're the final boss, and you still suck because you've garnered like a whole army of people, and we're just here two people. It's like, okay,
That's because the guy who's pulling the strings is God, and you're not going to beat
exactly,
God.
exactly. You can never bet against God. You screw
Because
yourself.
it's like, even if you kill me, God's going to send 1,000 more. So I mean, you're gonna like you can't beat that. Like
Exactly,
you just you can't. So it's really all there is to it. All right,
exactly.
we can close now. All right. Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for this day. We thank you for your love, grace, and mercy. We thank you for the hope that you've given us this day. Open our hearts and minds to your will and help the men to stand up and do what is right and to lead their families, but humble themselves before God, that we would come to God in full repentance and that we would lead by example and bring our families together, and that the women would stand with the men to rebuild their families, their churches, their community, and their nation, that there would be some protection for these children and that they would get instruction in righteousness is my prayer. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Yeah, I encourage all of you to go out into the world, all you SheGos. Don't give up. Do not become villains because people are pissing you off. That's what they want to happen. The people at the top pulling the strings want you to turn against yourself and God and become a villain. Find the Wades of the world, prioritize capability, be equally yoked. The men obviously have to fix these things. You heard my dad. I'm just saying. As a woman, though, find those Wades. I mean, that's a lot easier when you have good father. To be fair, or someone you can trust or whatever. But Wades and SheGos need to connect so that we can actually get real things done. The impossible possibility of SheGo is that she connects with Wade and she does exceptional things together with him for greatness. And even in things like this, podcasts like this are more exceptional when there's two, a man and a woman, that brings together equal parts of a whole that can make ideas more well-rounded for people to understand in a way that is conducive for their positive progression. Sir Gonzo says, have a good night. Thanks for the amazing content as always. Thank you, Sir Gonzo. Please share it with someone you think. And anyways, yeah. Life is dull, is without meaning, and full of void. When Wade finds SheGo, there is sunshine, hearts, and flowers, and life is filled with vigor. So, anyways, guys, we will catch you in the next one. We will see you later. Have a good night. Ciao.